15 minutes talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Faro.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News. Households will see their energy bills rise as the new energy price cap comes into effect today.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Saturday, the 1st of October. Happy new month. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We're live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, your radio and online. So wherever you are, you can take us with you. These are your top stories.
Energy bills will rise for millions of households, but the increase will be cushioned by a government cap on the cost per unit. We're going to find out exactly how that will affect your monthly energy costs.
Also today, more strike action with train drivers set to go on industrial action over the next 2 days as part of a long-running dispute over pay.
And Prince William says online safety must be a priority after the death of 14-year-old Molly Russell. Molly took her own life after viewing social media posts, which the NSPCC says no child should see.
We'd love to hear from you this morning. Get in touch about anything you want to talk about, something serious or something cheap and cheerful.
Yeah, maybe you make a resolution for the first of the month. This is the month I'm going to do X, Y, Z.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually, because you
what
never
you vowed to do.
Because you never stick to the New Year resolutions.
No. Oh, I make resolutions first of every week almost. If I'm lucky, if they last till Tuesday. But
this
there
is
you go.
the problem. This is the problem. GB Views at gbnews.uk. We're going to run through all your thoughts in just a couple of minutes, but let's start with the cost of living crisis, should we? Continuing to affect us all. So energy regulator Ofgem has announced an energy price cap cover for domestic homes in England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. And
of course that comes as the average household energy bill is set to rise from £1,971 to £2,500, nearly doubling what it would have been for you last winter.
Well, to cope with the squeeze, the government has set up a range of support for businesses, charities and public sector organisations under the new Energy Bill Relief Scheme.
Meanwhile, the independent energy research firm Cornwall Insight estimate that the scheme will cost the government £25 billion. Our reporter Theo Chikomba has more.
Libraries are often a place to come and delve into a book, but here there's more. Suffolk libraries are opening their doors to meet the needs of communities across the county as the cost of living increases.
Our colleagues who work at all of our sites spend every day chatting to people in the local community and understanding what their needs are. And a lot of those conversations obviously are people talking about their, definite concerns about the cost of living and the rising pressures on their own personal budgets.
And that's why they're expanding their services here in Ipswich, where they're seeing more people come for financial and emotional support.
Especially of late, people coming in and using the food banks and talking to us, and it is heartbreaking to see that people are suffering, but at the same time it's very rewarding that they know that they can come to the library as a safe, warm environment and they will be offered some support and kindness. I think at the moment, with prices and everything going up, the one thing we can give for free is kindness and support.
From today, the wholesale energy price will be discounted for 6 months. Prices will be fixed at £211 per megawatt per hour for electricity and £75 per megawatt per hour for gas, which the government say is less than half of the wholesale prices anticipated this year. Meanwhile, in London, this church near Covent Garden turned on their heating for the first time this week as temperatures are starting to drop. Their main source of heating is oil, which isn't capped. But will the discount for their electricity and gas help their bills to go down?
We hope that some of that offset from electricity and gas will set off some of the cost of the oil. So it is going to make a difference to us. What size that's going to be, we don't know yet, but it will make some difference. It all depends on what oil costs look like and how much we have to use to keep the building warm.
The scheme has been welcomed by many businesses and organisations who feared sharp rises this winter. But industry experts still question what will happen after New Year when the government reviews who will be eligible for support in the long term. Theo Chikomba, GB News.
And of course, we'll be looking into exactly what it does mean, because the term energy price cap gives you the impression that your own bill won't go up. And your own bill will be capped, and that's not. It's the rate that's capped. So if you turn on your heating now, you could still end up spending more than the average, and that's the way it's going to work out. So love to hear from you if you've got any clues onto. Do you know? I actually sat in my living room with a woolly hat on because it was freezing yesterday, and. I remember my son's got lots of ski wear in his bedroom, so I went up and I had a look through his thermal underwear and stuff like that.
Lord.
Your long johns and stuff. And I found this lovely ski bobble hat, and I put it on, and you warm up like that. It's incredible how brilliant they are.
Well, my house got down to 15 degrees this week, so I have relented and I have put on.
You weren't going
to. I know,
to.
but I haven't put on the main centre. I've got a different heating on the ground floor. So I've put that on, and it's just a gentle thing. So
you weren't going to.
I know, but it's just taking the edge off, and it
the other day.
permeates upwards. So I haven't put the central heating on. I've just put the underfloor on.
Yeah.
So it's still serving money.
I put a woolly hat on. I should get you a woolly hat.
Yeah, we might have to. Awful, isn't it?
Well, you lose a lot of your body heat through the head, don't you?
Yeah.
Put a woolly hat on. I can't tell you the difference it made. I know I will have looked very odd. I'm turning into one of those old ladies. Sits there on the sofa watching the telly with a woolly hat on.
Well, there are worse things to do. Let's head to Essex, should we, and talk to one of our GB News viewers and listeners, Richard Gray. Morning to you, Richard. You've not got a woolly hat on this morning.
Not yet.
How are you coping with the cold?
Good morning, guys. Yeah, I think I should put a woolly hat on, but actually my heating is on, and I feel a little bit of a fraud this morning because... against all the expert advice back in January, February, I actually fixed my energy because I'd moved home. I just moved home and lost a fixed deal. I decided back in February to accept a fixed deal that at the time was quite expensive. It was a bit more than what the price cap was then. But now... I'm paying about a third less than what I would have been if I'd today gone on to the energy price cap. So I'm ashamed to say my heating's on at the moment because it's very early in the morning and it was chilly. But it makes no difference. The government are going to make, and there's only about 1 or 2% of people in my position. The government is going to have to make up the difference between what I'm paying and what the energy companies supply me actually need to pay for my energy. So at the end of the day, as a taxpayer, the tab's going to be picked up in the future anyway.
Yeah, somebody's got to pay, haven't they, in the end? And I know that you've got children. You're worried that they're going to be taxed up to the teeth for the rest of their lives.
Well, this is it. I think back in the 70s, when we were in a big pit, and I remember them, you can probably see by my wrinkles that I was around in the 70s. It took the country a long time to recover from the economic gloom that was we had back there then. And I was a young taxpayer through the 80s, and I paid extortionate mortgage rates back in the 80s and the 90s, and we all had to struggle through. I think we've all got a responsibility as individuals to contribute to getting the country back on its feet. And I'm not sure that the plan, the mini budget, will actually achieve that. I find it quite worrying. I find it quite worrying for my children, who are going to be picking up the tab, not just for this huge amount of borrowing, but the borrowing that we did during the pandemic, which of course was absolutely necessary.
But of course, with all of this, and we don't know if it's going to work or not. If we take the assumption that the budget is going to work, then that, and some experts are saying that's going to bring significant growth in the economy within 12 months. Now, that means that we could pay that money back comparatively quickly, and it's not going to be a burden on the next generation.
But I'm a fairly simple man, so can I sort of run an analogy that if I was doing the same in my own household, it's like me going, I mean, I don't like paying tax. Nobody likes paying tax. I've not found anybody who does. But the government's only income is tax. And they've cut tax, and it's like going back to your business and saying, excuse me, would you reduce my salary, and I'll make, and then any difference I'll make up on my credit card and max that out. I'll use that to pay for the difference, and maybe then go next door and pay whatever they can't pay on their energy bill on my credit card until it's fully maxed out. I'm just fearful we're borrowing too much. And again, it's the kids who are going to pick up the tab, isn't it? I see the economy as a sort of a super tanker. It takes a long time to turn a super tanker around, and it looks like the government's plan wants to handbrake turn that super tanker and try and do things really quick. We don't need a trickle down. We need a monsoon to get over all this.
Yes, and also maybe for the Tory government to recover from how badly they're doing at the moment in public opinion, at least in the polls. We're going to be talking about our GBNews People's Poll a bit later on, but it puts, this is our poll, not just the YouGov one that was the other day. It puts Labour 30 points ahead. Do you think the Tories can recover quickly enough, or do you think we're going to be seeing a Labour government within 2 years?
I have to say they've lost my support. I think what's happened recently is being irresponsible. I saw the Thatcher government slowly crawl us, slowly scratch us out of the problems that we had back in the early 80s and the huge debt. There was no big bang plan. It was a slow chip away at the economy until such time as we got to the fortunate position of any middle earner became comfortable. And, unlike my parents, didn't struggle. Now people are going back into that world where they're struggling. And I think we're just trying, it felt like when the mini budget was on, it felt like, a pin was pulled and a grenade was chucked in the room and fingers were put in ears and wait for it to go off and see what happens.
Well, isn't it a dismal analogy?
Well, it is. But, I mean, some of the experts say this is going to work. They say it will. I mean, I get what you're saying with your analogy, but the idea is, you reduce some taxes, it actually increases tax revenue because people are doing less tax avoidance. I mean, it all gets very complicated. But don't we have to show a little bit of trust in what these experts are saying?
I hope it does. I mean, the Germans have a fantastic word called, it's Verschlimmbessern. We haven't got anything similar in English language. And that is, to change something, to put in a plan with all best intentions, but to actually make it worse. And early indications are it's not helped that much, this latest plan. It's not even been implemented yet. It's just a threat. We know what the Tory MPs are doing in terms of snuggling up to the Labour MPs to see if they can squash some of these plans.
Well, look, we'll love you and leave you for the moment because the signal's beginning to get a bit dodgy. Oh, before we do, though, do you have a dog?
I do, Ted.
And what sort
Ted.
of dog? What sort of dog is Ted?
Come here, Ted. He's a miniature golden doodle, which it doesn't. Come here, Ted. Ted, come here.
He's a miniature golden doodle.
They're not miniature though. He's a sort of a cross between a poodle and.
Oh, hello, Ted.
This is Mr. Ted.
Oh, he's lovely.
Say hello to Anne.
Hello. Hello.
He does need a bath.
Oh.
He needs a bath.
I'm glad I asked now, because we're going to be talking about the best breeds of dog, and he is lovely. A miniature golden doodle.
Right.
Yeah.
Ted. Hello, Ted. No.
Ted. Say hello, Ted.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh, it's lovely to see you both. Thank you very much indeed.
And can I say that I accidentally found out your birthday because it was a sad day we lost the Queen.
It was.
And it happened to be my 16-year-old daughter's birthday as well. So happy birthday for them.
That's lovely. What's her name?
It's Lily, and she's fast asleep.
Oh, right. Of course she would be. Any sensible person would, wouldn't they? But give her my love.
Including me.
Shared birthday.
All right.
We
Nice
also
to talk
share
to
that
you.
birthday with Harry Seacombe.
Oh, dear.
The late, great Harry Seacombe. He was 8th of September as well.
Oh, there you go.
And I'm also told the Virgin Mary. But how can anyone know that?
No.
No, I know. But that's what I was always told.
Yeah, I don't think that calendar even existed then.
I wouldn't have thought so, no.
Anyway, there you go. You heard it here first.
You learn something new every day.
Right, it is 6:15, right on the nose. Let's bring you up to date with what's going on today. And Ofgem is advising householders to take a picture of their meter reading to avoid being overcharged on their energy bills. The new price cap is now in place, with a typical household expected to spend about £2,500, up from £1,971.
South Korea's military says North Korea has fired 2 missiles towards the sea today, its 4th launch in a week. That comes just a day after South Korea, the US and Japan staged anti-submarine exercises for the first time in 5 years.
Landlords in Scotland who own Airbnb-style short-term lets now have until April the 1st next year to get licensed, or they won't be able to have guests. The Scottish Government says safety standards will be improved, with hosts required to take fire and gas safety precautions and have buildings and public liability insurance.
The Natural History Museum has created gardens to study how wildlife reacts to climate. They're full of sensors to track in real time the best plants for withstanding climate change, monitoring conditions like temperature, humidity and sound.
And you know what that proves?
Talking to your plants.
Talking to your plants does. They can hear you.
Do you know they've also found in coral, in oceans where the coral is dying because of pollution and things like that, they've found that if they put, not microphones, but speakers underwater on those dead coral reefs, and the speakers are playing the sound of a healthy ocean,
Right.
it gets life back onto the coral reef.
Really?
And the coral starts to grow again. Yeah, isn't that amazing?
You see, all this
And
stuff.
that is work being done, I think, by the University of Exeter in this
You
country.
see, they laughed at people like me and King Charles for talking to plants for years.
No.
And we're right.
Sound seems to work. It seems to work. It makes sense, doesn't it, I suppose? It's part of the natural life.
Yeah.
So sound matters, even to coral and plants,
Yes.
things like that.
And if the sound of us makes you feel better, if you're listening on GB News Radio this morning, please do get in touch. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Yeah,
maybe we make it worse.
Well, I hope not. I hope because we need cheering up at the moment because there's rail strikes today. Train schedules across the country are disrupted today as rail workers carry out planned strikes over pay and working conditions.
Now, the lack of services are going to impact those travelling to Birmingham for the annual Conservative Party conference, amongst other things. Let's talk to our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis. Morning to you. I think you're at Derby train station, aren't you, which is a big hub for the UK. What's happening there?
Good morning. Yes, a big hub for the UK on a big day for strikes. A real minimal timetable today. Only 11% of trains are running across the country. 1 in 10 trains running across the country. You can only imagine the disruption that we can expect today, because only a few weeks ago, when we saw a third of trains running, we saw the problems and the chaos with people being stranded in places where they couldn't leave to. It's going to be a really big day, particularly because there are 4 different unions hosting strikes today. Usually it's just been 1 or 2, but this is a coordinated day of action by the RMT, the ASLEF union, the TSSA and Unite's union as well. And here at Derby train station, there are some trains running, and you will see a picket line very shortly. But in some places you will see stations completely closed. You'll see lines completely closed because there is such a minimal timetable. Just to give you a bit of an idea, particularly for people that are going down to London for the weekend, maybe they're going to the London Marathon, where there'll be 50,000 people running. Some really big cities where you won't be able to get a train to today. You won't be able to get a train to London from Edinburgh, from Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham, Newcastle, Brighton and Norwich, and the places where you might be able to get a train, you are going to see far fewer of them going in and out. Now, as I say, this is a day of coordinated action in a long wave of disputes between rail operators. 15 of them are going to be facing these strikes today by the members of those union. Mick Lynch, who's become a bit of the figurehead, despite only representing the RMT. Many people have watched some of his videos and interviews, often seen him running rings around some interviewers, and he's become a bit of a figurehead for this. And what he's said is the summer of solidarity we have seen will continue into the autumn and winter if employers and the government continue to refuse workers' reasonable demands. Of course, those demands, as you said at the start, are about pay and working conditions. There are obviously lots of different deals being made and disputes being made depending on the union or the operator. So there are lots of workings going on, but you can quite easily imagine that it's all to do with that inflation figure. It's a real battle to try and get something that's closer in line with inflation, and it's clearly a dispute that's going to go on for quite a bit longer. Network Rail is warning you not to travel unless absolutely necessary, and to check for updates before and during your travel. This is just 1 day of disruption, but it is going to go on until tomorrow. So when the Conservative Party conference does start tomorrow and the London Marathon starts as well, you can ensure that there will be some effects that trickle into tomorrow.
Yes, that's Will there up in Derby. Thanks very much, Will. Let's go now to Euston Station, I think, in London. No, it's at King's Cross, I think, and to travel guru Simon Calder. Hello, Simon. Is it King's Cross you're at?
Yes, it certainly is, because there are trains running here. And good morning to you, and good morning to Stephen. And it's quite surprising, given that we have the biggest rail strike for 40 years. The RMT union vowed to shut down the railway network. As you mentioned, or as Will mentioned, you've got members of ASLEF, the Train Drivers Union. You've also got the Transport Salaried Staffs Association, members of Unite, as well as the RMT union, the biggest one. And yet from about 7:30 onwards, there will be trains running from here to Cambridge and to Ely. There's going to be roughly an hourly service up to Doncaster, some trains continuing to York. If you are heading from Leeds to London, well, you can catch any train you like today, as long as it's the 9:15. That will be the only one, just one coming south, one going north. Next door at St Pancras International, which is the terminus indeed for trains from Derby, Sheffield, Leicester, Nottingham. That's going to be opening up quite soon, and some Eurostar trains will be running. But if you go up to the big station for the West Midlands, North West England, Southern Scotland, that's London Euston, completely closed today, and wherever you are, it's a bit of railway roulette. As we heard from Will, just 11% of trains, 1 in 9 is running, and the advice is, if you don't have to travel, please don't. And indeed, well, we're just looking there at London Waterloo Station, the busiest in Britain. The advice there is simply do not travel tomorrow either, which is going to be quite annoying if you, for instance, want to travel up for the London Marathon. So an absolute mess. And would you believe we've got strikes right now for the next 10 days Wednesday, big train drivers strike. Indeed, East Midlands Railway is saying, no, we're running some trains today, Saturday. We won't be running any on Wednesday. Same applies on Avanti West Coast, on South Eastern. And then next Saturday, RMT Union will be having another strike. And in between, if you're on Great Western Railway, that's from London to Cardiff to Bristol to Exeter and Plymouth, they will be having problems Thursday and Friday because of a strike by members of the TSSA. Hope you're paying attention. There will be a test later.
OK, Simon, thank you for now. We'll no doubt catch up with you over the next few days. You'll probably still be crossed. Yes,
exactly. It'd be interesting to see if you manage to get where you're going too.
I mean, honestly,
that is quite a list.
If you're trying to get anywhere, I think there's going to be a huge problem for the rail companies in all of this, in that travel just plummeted, obviously because of the pandemic, and hasn't recovered back to normal levels. And this is just going to keep people off the trains. You wonder if it's an industry which it's never going to die out, but if it's going to be severely changed over the next few years as a result of all of this.
And the problem is that people will be forced, I suppose, if you're coming to the London Marathon, people will be forced to drive, which just causes more pollution and more problems on the roads, doesn't it?
Yeah, because London
it's what we're meant to be trying to get away from.
Yeah, London is not a place you want to drive round or drive to, that's for sure.
No,
if you are heading down this way, particularly for you could well be coming down today for the marathon, or you might be down already. But anyway, get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.uk.
And don't forget to get in touch with the dogs that you would most recommend to others, because we're going to be talking a bit later on to a vet who has done a TikTok thing. See how much I understand these things, but he's gone viral.
Not the little mints.
No, those are Tic Tacs.
Oh, Tic Tacs. Oh.
Yeah. But he became very famous on social media because, as a vet, he talked about the sort of dogs that he would most avoid as pets. But now he's recommending them. And the top number one sort of dog he recommends is a mongrel. A Heinz 57, they used to call them, didn't they?
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never come across
57
that
varieties, yes. And the next one is a Labrador, then a Hungarian wire-haired Witzel. Never heard of that before.
Never heard of that
Beautiful dog, apparently. Then a Border Terrier, and then a Greyhound, because he actually says that Greyhounds make very good pets because they're very gentle and loving. And if you can get one that's had its racing career ended, apparently they make extraordinarily good pets. He'll be able to tell us all about it later. But what sort of breed would you recommend?
If you've got a Ridgeback, get in touch.
Why?
Because that is what we're going to have to get a Ridgeback. Well, a rescue, but a Ridgeback is what we're going to have after Timmy's gone.
Are they big?
Oh, yeah.
Big.
They're big. Mm. But the males are very, very affectionate,
but you're
very
used to
protective.
having a cat that looks after itself.
Yeah, I know.
Apart from crawling all over your computer, which it did the other day.
Oh, it did.
But, yeah, if you get a Ridgeback, you're going to have to walk it
a lot.
At least twice a day, and they have to be long walks.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a high maintenance animal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Got to be prepared for it. Yeah. Anyway, if you've got a Ridgeback, let me know how you're getting on and send pictures, please. Thank you very much. Much more to come, including results from our very latest GB News People's Poll. I'll give you all the details after the weather.
Hello, good morning. A bright start out there, and compared with yesterday, a brighter day to come. But it stays breezy. There'll be further showers, especially in the north and the west. Low pressure remains in control, that low pressure sitting towards Iceland. And we keep the tightly packed isobars, but the very strongest winds and the most persistent wet weather, well, that's moved out of the way into the near continent. So left behind, we've got this brisk westerly airflow, a rash of showers already into Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and they'll develop a bit more widely into the Midlands, Eastern England, Eastern Scotland by the afternoon. So I don't think anyone will be immune from seeing a shower. They'll be fairly fleeting, I think, and short-lived in the east, whilst frequent and heavy towards the northwest, accompanied by that strong wind. That's going to make it feel cool, whilst I think in the south and the east, where we get a bit of shelter from the breeze, where we get a bit of sunshine, 18 or 19 Celsius, will feel pleasant enough. The showers in the south and the east tend to fade away as the sun goes down, but I think on Saturday night we'll keep showers going for Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England as well. In the south, drier, but actually later in the night, thicker cloud and some spells of rain push back into the southwest. That'll keep things mild, 13 Celsius here, 8 to 11 Celsius elsewhere. Some sunshine first thing through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, Northern England, North Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia. A fine day through the central swathe, but in the south, well, thicker cloud turns up and some persistent and at times heavy rain, especially towards the southwest and then other parts of the south coast. South Wales could see some rain for a time as well. And it's going to feel cool under that rain with a brisk breeze. But through the central swathe, high teens, pleasant enough. Further showers to come in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Monday sees further showers again in the north, followed by more persistent rain later. Much drier further south.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel, Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News. "6:30, you're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. Good morning to you.
Now, if you think you're having a bad week, think about Liz Truss, because she's really had a bad week. It's confirmed by this GB News People's Poll, which shows a 30-point lead for the Labour Party over the Conservatives. That's Labour on 50 points, the Tories on 20. And that's grown from only a 12-point lead last Friday.
It's also good news for Keir Starmer on perceptions of economic management. Only 10% say a Conservative government led by Liz Truss would be best for the economy. 39% say Labour and Keir Starmer.
Well, we're joined now by Joseph Robertson, who's director of the Orthodox Conservatives think tank. A very good morning to you. So what do you think of that?
Well, I mean, we all know about polls. Things change quite quickly.
Yeah, but a 30-point lead, you can't
It's big, but I think at this stage, I don't know if it's really about people wanting Starmer to lead or just not seeing alternatives, seeing their bills going up and actually not liking current leadership rather than seeing what's ahead of them. I mean, if you look at what Labour's actually been proposing, I think Rayner was saying she was going to reverse tax cuts. Starmer said the opposite. There's obviously some infighting there. They're going to go harder on fantastical green policies, which is why we're here in the first place. So I don't know if the average taxpayer is really seeing anything in Labour to...
Yeah, but you know how it works. Parties don't win elections, governments lose them.
Well,
and
yeah,
this
quite.
Losing.
Yeah, and I think there is still a lot of areas for Truss's government to work on. They've been very weak on immigration in the first few weeks, and I think that's going to shift the red wall vote.
Yeah, come on, though. Come on. These polls... Yeah, all about money.
Yeah, no, sure. And I think one thing that Truss needs to do straight away is to reach out to the city, because the reason why the sterling's plummeted is because of financial outflows. The city needs to see that it's going to get a good budget coming their way. and it needs to see something that proves to them that they can actually back this government.
I mean, even Liz Truss's staunchest allies are saying that it's the way they delivered the message. The optics were really poor. The communication was really poor, and has frankly just caused consternation and fear instead of reassurance. Would you agree?
I'd also say that there wasn't enough emphasis on energy itself. We should be looking at energy independence right now. We shouldn't just be talking about money. Everything should be on the table. We should have nuclear, coal, fracking. That should all be coming out, because right now we're in a crisis situation, and the government needs to be strong with its messaging that's actually going to make us able to cope independently and not be reliant on other sources.
Which is exactly what Keir Starmer says he's going to do by 2030, and you've just rubbished that.
But he's also said that he's going to continue on with green policies, which means...
yes, he's going to make us green and independent by 2030.
Green and independent, but he's not going to reverse all of those issues, which is why we're here in the first place, because we stopped production of fuels. I mean, that's why we're here. That's the real crisis. We've got to this point because we can't compete with energy independently. That's the problem. So unless a government is willing to step up and say that they're going to do that, I don't know that we can see much in terms of...
I tell you what intrigues me, that you said that, the government needs, there's a lot they can do, they need to reach out to the city.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people watching and listening saying, no, they need to reach out to me.
Yeah.
That's what they need to do.
But they also need to prove that they have an economic plan for this country. And the city is integral to that. The reason why you're getting such a scare with the pound is because they're not managing communications, coming back to what you were saying, the right way. This is all about communication. You have to tell both the city and the people that there's something coming for them in the budget that's going to actually be sustainable for their long term, for their children.
And instead, what we're hearing from Liz Truss is that she is determined to go with it. She doesn't mind being unpopular. Is that the right tack to be taking? I mean, we went through that long leadership election, and true blue Tories are really hoping that they've got a really true blue leader. And yet, within a week, frankly, it's 3, but the 2 weeks of it were obviously taken up with mourning our lost Queen. So only about 8 days, 9 days in office, and she already has lost the communications battle.
Right. Well, this comes back to rubbishing the membership, which we saw all the way through the Tory leadership election. Not just from the Truss campaign, but from all sides. There wasn't enough emphasis put on the ordinary individual, and this is all very much...
How can she get it so wrong so quickly?
Well, I think we're used to a top-down management structure in government, and there's not much listening from the grassroots up, and this has always been the problem for the last few governments. And this is why the Tory leadership is so out of touch with the membership, because they're not really listening to what's being said on the ground. They're simply implementing instead of listening. So
in that case, they deserve a kicking, don't they?
Well, you could say that, yeah, but I think the alternative is still worse. That's my personal opinion. So I think it needs to be more about communication. It needs to be more about solutions. It needs to be less about rhetoric.
So what should have happened in the budget?
Well, I think if you're going to go with that kind of budget, there also needs to be an announcement that we're pushing for massive internal growth, that we're opening up small businesses, that we're providing relief to entrepreneurs, to the normal taxpayer, and we're looking for energy independence. I haven't seen those words yet. I think we need to be putting that on the table.
But none of that provides any immediate relief, or not. I mean, there's the price cap thing today, which is still an increase in the price cap.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot on the table there which says to the ordinary voter and those who are really struggling, yeah, we're going to help you out.
Well, the thing is, you have to slow down on spending. I think everybody is kind of on the same page. The government's spending more on this current scheme than it's going to have spent on the furlough scheme, which was already close to World War II spending, if you take everything into consideration. It's a hell of a lot of spending going on. So it's all about how you rein that in. I think this is one way of doing it, but it needs to be alongside other things. It can't just be rhetoric. It has to be solutions to say how we're also going to raise people's pockets, as well as saying that we're going to reduce tax. And I think that has to come from the business perspective. She has to show people that there is a chance to grow their own businesses and grow their own income. And therefore, you're going to have to cope with inflation. That's just a reality. We've got to this position, not just based on the crisis we're going through now with energy, with the war in Ukraine, with all these different things, but also because of consistent bad policy for so long. This is not something that can be reversed overnight. It's a structural change that needs to happen.
I wonder what will happen in the next year and a half, because, Liz Truss's government is going to have to pull a rabbit out of a hat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very quickly, and yet doesn't seem to be showing very many signs of that. Because, as Stephen has said, it's governments that lose election, not the opposition that wins it. But you're in danger, aren't you,
Absolutely.
of letting Keir Starmer in the front door of number 10?
Yeah. Well, it's about listening. Hopefully a poll like this is something that wakes people up to realise that people need...
But don't politicians read newspapers? I mean,
well, you wouldn't
polling
think
has been
it,
going
would
this
you?
way
You
for
wouldn't
months.
think it. You wouldn't think it. I mean, I think the problem is that there's been this idea that you keep going no matter what for so long. And Johnson's government was, absolutely all about that. If a crisis hit, it was just on to the next crisis. It was all about keeping moving forward. And I think there's some of that that's been inherited. I think everyone's tarred by the same brush, even if they're not directly associated. So in terms of the management structure, the messaging needs to be better. Maybe they need some new comms coming in quite quickly. I think a week is a long time in politics, right? So there's always a chance to overturn a poll like this, but it's about how you respond to it. If you come out and do a bit of mea culpa rather than just going on the offensive, you're going to win some voters back over.
Well, we shall see. Joseph, it's good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much
Of course,
indeed.
it's the start of the Tory party conference tomorrow, isn't
is.
it? Can't imagine there's going to be much mea culpa-ing.
It's going to be a rough ride, actually, I should think.
Interesting one to see what their strategy is.
It will be. It will be. I don't think it's going to be a pleasant watch somehow. But anyway, we'll bring you all the details of that as and when it happens. Let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk. It's 6:39. Let's tell you what's going to come in a couple of minutes. All the newspapers for you. Emma Webb and Pete Price will take us through their selections in a couple of minutes.
We are GB News. And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV.
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel. Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back, 6:42. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. If you're feeling a bit chilly this morning, Bet from Dorset says, put your feet on a hot water bottle and you'll be nice and toasty in a very short while.
Yeah, you
as
see, it's
heat
feet and
rises.
head. You lose the heat through your feet and through your head.
I mean, that just sounds very nice, doesn't it, to put your feet on a hot water bottle?
Woolly hat and a hot water bottle.
Oh, yes, thanks, Bet, for that one.
Should we take a look at today's front pages? Let's have a look at the Telegraph, reporting that Kwasi Kwarteng has reiterated his promise to bring government spending under control.
The Times leads on the Prince of Wales's comments about online safety following the tragic suicide of schoolgirl Molly Russell.
And the Mail say, have they found Keith at last? They don't know it yet, but there seems to be evidence that they're finding evidence of Keith Bennett maybe being buried. He was one of the last victims of the Moors murderers.
58 years ago,
Can't believe it.
isn't it? Let's hope so. Let's keep our fingers crossed and he can be laid to rest with his mum. The Daily Express says banks warn of a house price slump as many owners fear they could be forced into property sales. Mind you, that'd be as a homeowner, I don't want my house price to slump. However, if you're trying to get on the property ladder...
Yeah, is that the time to do it?
It's what you want to see, isn't it? I mean, it's swings and roundabouts.
Well, it always is with the housing market. It depends whether you're a buyer or a seller, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let's go through the papers then in a bit more detail with former Deputy Research Director from Free Speech Union, Emma Webb, and broadcaster Pete Price. Morning to see you both.
Morning.
Yeah,
You've reviewed the papers already now.
I can't get my words out. I'm making no sense at all.
No, we haven't. No, because you're going to
you're getting new shelves in the garage.
I'm getting new shelves in the garage.
You're going to give us your pithy insights.
Pardon?
Yeah, no pressure.
It's too baudy for this time.
Yeah.
Pithy insights.
Emma, let's start with you. She's in the Times, looking at the Prince of Wales.
So Prince William has commented on this ruling relating to the young girl Molly Russell, who sadly committed suicide after going down a sort of rabbit hole on social media of posts advocating for suicide, self-harm, and relating to depression. And he's come out and said, expressed his sort of support for the family and said that more needs to be done to deal with this issue online, with online safety.
It's the algorithms, isn't it, that follow you? It's the
Yes.
fact that, by the look of it, Molly was looking at various sites because she was already suffering from depression. And then she got bombarded by these algorithms showing her more websites to go to and more online stuff that, frankly, as the coroner said, no child should have to look at.
So what happens is that when you look at a certain post, the algorithm basically keeps suggesting to you more of the same content and possibly more extreme versions of the same content. And so it seems that in that way she's been really led down a kind of, like I say, a rabbit hole. According to the papers today, of the 16,000 pieces of content that she looked at on Instagram, 2,100 of them related to suicide, self-harm and depression. She was also looking at similar material on Pinterest. And now this also plays importantly into a discussion around legislation that is imminent relating to the online harms bill. That has in it safeguards for children, putting duties onto social media companies to deal with it. But what it also involves is an entirely sort of related but separate discussion around material that has been described as legal but harmful with respect to adults. And so this is a very, very complicated discussion. There are many aspects of that online harms bill that are extremely concerning and actually are a threat to free speech. And so I think what's important is, firstly, that Prince William should be aware of that he doesn't get himself tangled in the same way that that Charles had done in very political discussions. Obviously, he's not intending to do so. I think it's very important to emphasise that safeguarding children online needs to be very, very distinct from anything that may have impacts on free speech. There should be no safeguards in terms of legal but harmful material when it comes to adults.
Interesting you say free speech. What is free speech anymore? Because of 40, 50 years on radio, of late-night radio, I've had children begging for help at what they've seen on social media. And I've reported stuff about me that's been vile, and they've said, no, there's no case to answer. They have lost sight, the bosses have lost sight of what's going on. No algorithms should lead you to anything like that, and it's clear that she's been led along with these awful things. And how can they justify having any of these out there?
Because they're not trained publishers. That's what annoys me. When you go into journalism, you have to be trained. And you're trained about the social responsibility of everything you say and print. even though you might not agree with it, you're trained about the social responsibility of that. These people who set up websites, they don't know that.
They
I'm not
actually
interested.
Money. That's all it's
on
about.
the
out of control.
On the front page of the Times today as well, it says that it was only actually in 2019, in response to the Molly Russell campaign, that they started removing self-harm and suicide material.
Yeah.
OK. Pete, let's have a look at the Mail. Keith Bennett. And let's hope. Let's hope.
It is.
The story is everywhere. The Moors murder. I'm shocked at this because I didn't know they were still digging. I didn't know they were still looking. So I'm delighted they're still looking.
Well, it's only this one man who's been looking.
It's been remarkable. And it's, as you said before, Stephen, 58 years. It's everywhere, this. I lived through it. A lot of people out there, youngsters, will not even know about it. It was one of the most dreadful, heinous crimes on this earth. The tapes of the children.
I know.
And I
terrible.
interviewed Winnie Johnson.
Yeah. We all three did. We did. You're too
I
young.
have never,
but we did.
never. I fought the tears back. She was fighting the cancer. She was fighting the pain. And she was the most tormented human being I'd ever met.
How could she not be?
No. Unbelievable.
And the worst thing was that, well, it wasn't worse, but I mean, it was awful for all of the victims and those families. But Winnie Bennett never knew what happened. She never knew where her son's body was. And they never told her. In fact, they clearly led her along.
Well, he played games. He was out all the time on the moors because that was a day out for him. They were both manipulating evil, wicked people. And I just hope that it is Keith, and I hope he can be laid to rest by his mum.
So do I. I quite agree with you. I think everybody got... I was very upset when I heard about it yesterday because it hits you. Anyway.
She's in my head now.
Yeah, me too.
I'll never forget every word. I lived on every word of her interview. The pain was dreadful.
Awful. There's very few crimes in this country, I think, that you can really point at and say, that's just evil. Pure evil. But that, I'm afraid, falls into it.
I do hope it's him.
Yes,
the police seem to be taking it very seriously.
Yeah.
And they've got all sorts of independent forensics working on it who say, at the moment, they're saying it does appear to be a child. It does appear to be a human body that's there. They're not saying any more at the moment, but they're doing DNA tests.
And do you know what? When I was gigging around the country and going up and down to Leeds and everywhere, every time I went past the moors, it was haunting and is still haunting that human beings can do that to other human beings.
Unbelievable.
Look, we need to leave it there. Emma, Pete, thank you both very much indeed. Let's turn to matters royal, should we?
Yes, it's a royal debate almost compared to Britain's Megxit. And it's a row that's been sparked in Denmark because Queen Margrethe has announced that she will strip 4 of her 8 grandchildren of their titles.
Now, the decision affects Prince Nikolai, Prince Felix, Prince Henrik and Princess Athena. The official reason behind the decision was to allow the children of her youngest son to live more normal lives.
Yeah, she's actually sort of said it'll be good for them. Now, the palace has defended the decision, saying it's following similar moves made by other royal families in Europe. And we do know, don't we, that Prince Charles, now King Charles, has said before that he would quite like to slim down the monarchy a bit like those other European royal families. So what's going on?
Let's talk to Norman Baker, former Home Office Minister, of course, but also royal author. Morning to you, Norman. Good to see you. What do you make of all of this?
Morning, Stephen. Well, I mean, I think it's interesting that Denmark's done this. Denmark's already got a much slimmer monarchy than we have in this country. And the cost of the Danish monarchy, for example, was about £10 million a year. Ours is probably £280 million a year, taking account of security. So they've already got a much smaller monarchy, or smaller country, of course, but nevertheless. What they're doing here, I think, is Queen Margrethe taking away, as you say, titles from 4 of her grandchildren, including Prince Nikolai, who is a model and said to be sad and shocked by the turn of events. I think is simply reflecting reality, which is the standard monarchy in European countries these days is becoming the monarch and his or her consort, then the immediate heir and his or her partner, and then their children. And in a way, that's what we should have over here, I think. Charles and Camilla, William and Kate, and then their children. And really, the rest of them need not be there, in my view. I mean, so I think this is a standard move across Europe, and we ought to be replicating it here.
Interesting as well that we saw at the Queen's funeral that Queen Margrethe from Denmark was talking and clearly knows King Charles very, very well indeed. And so there's speculation as to whether they've actually been talking about this very subject.
Well, we don't know, of course, but it may well have been, because Charles is on record as saying he wants to slim down the monarchy. I think it's important that he does so for the future of the monarchy, as a matter of fact, as much as anything else. But it needs to be slimmed down in financial terms, not simply in numerical terms. But look, there's a precedent here already, because while Prince Andrew was very keen to ensure that his daughters were HRH, and made a big fuss about that and wanted them included in the court circular and so on, Princess Anne, in my view, took a much more sensible approach by saying that her children should not have the royal titles. They should be ordinary people and should get on with their lives, and they shouldn't be encumbered, as she saw it, by those titles. And I think she was absolutely right on that.
Look, Norman, to move away to a different issue, I can see you've still got a red box behind you. You've not let that go from your time in government. You were involved in the Department of Transport back in the day, 10 years or so ago. What do you make of these strikes that we're seeing with more train strikes today? It's going to be chaos for the next few weeks, isn't it?
Well, it is, I'm afraid. And I'm also part-time external director of external affairs for the Campaign for Better Transport, which is the country's leading transport charity. And our aim is to get people onto public transport for economic, social and environmental reasons. And I'm afraid that these strikes have the opposite effect. They deter people from getting on public transport, and that's not a good outcome, because if they move on to cars, they cause congestion on our streets, which doesn't help motorists either, or they transfer to planes sometimes, which are very polluting, or they stay at home when they want to go out. So we want to see an end to these strikes, all of us, I think, and the answer is really quite simple, I think. There's a deal to be done. The deal is that the unions accept that they have to shed some of these old practices which really have no place in the 21st century, for example, on Sunday working and so on. But in return, the money which is released from that, because there will be money released from that, is used to give them a decent pay rise. And that's the deal which everybody knows is there. It's a question of how they get to it.
Your thoughts on it. Norm Baker, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, dear, dear, dear. Let
More
us know.
and more strikes.
Oh, it's very depressing.
Yeah.
Talking of things that are depressing, this comes up time and time again. Paul, can anyone tell me why my standing charge for my meter has gone from 32p a day to 74p a day since February? No, can't tell you, Paul. So it's got nothing to do with how high gas or electricity prices are. It's rental for the meter, technically. So why the increase? Well, some increase. I mean, they are increased periodically, but not like this. This is what I can't understand.
And it depends who's put the meter in. Is it a prepayment meter with the energy company, or is it a private landlord's meter?
Well, no, but you still pay the standing charge to the electricity company,
Well, if that's
though,
what
don't
we're
you?
talking about,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah,
So,
I don't understand that. A lot of people are worried about standing charges, because even if you turn all your heating off, you still have to pay that, don't you?
Bills are still going up. Makes no sense at all to me. But then we'll try and get some answers, as we always do on this one. But look, don't go anywhere. We've got all the top stories coming up. More on energy, of course, after the weather.
Hello, good morning. A bright start out there, and compared with yesterday, a brighter day to come. But it stays breezy. There'll be further showers, especially in the north and the west. Low pressure remains in control. That low pressure sitting towards Iceland. And we keep the tightly packed isobars, but the very strongest winds and the most persistent wet weather, well, that's moved out of the way into the near continent. So left behind, we've got this brisk westerly airflow, a rash of showers already into Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and they'll develop a bit more widely into the Midlands, Eastern England, Eastern Scotland by the afternoon. So I don't think anyone will be immune from seeing a shower. They'll be fairly fleeting, I think, and short-lived in the east, whilst frequent and heavy towards the northwest, accompanied by that strong wind. That's going to make it feel cool, whilst I think in the south and the east, where we get a bit of shelter from the breeze, where we get a bit of sunshine, 18 or 19 Celsius, will feel pleasant enough. The showers in the south and the east tend to fade away as the sun goes down, but I think on Saturday night we'll keep showers going for Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England as well. In the south, drier, but actually later in the night, thicker cloud and some spells of rain push back into the southwest. That'll keep things mild, 13 Celsius here, 8 to 11 Celsius elsewhere. Some sunshine first thing through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, Northern England, North Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia. A fine day through the central swathe, but in the south, well, thicker cloud turns up and some persistent and at times heavy rain, especially towards the southwest and then other parts of the south coast. South Wales could see some rain for a time as well. And it's going to feel cool under that rain with a brisk breeze. But through the central swathe, high teens, pleasant enough. Further showers to come in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Monday sees further showers again in the north, followed by more persistent rain later, much drier further south.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Households will see their energy bills rise as the new energy price cap comes into effect.
Good morning to you. It's 7 o'clock. It's Saturday, the 1st of October. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
And we're live across the whole of the UK on both your TV and your radio. Wherever you are, online as well, you can take us with you. So here are the top stories for you this morning.
Energy bills will rise for millions of households today, but the increase is being cushioned by a government cap on the cost per unit. We'll find out how it's going to affect your monthly bills.
Also today, more strikes across the country with train drivers set to go on industrial action for 2 days as part of a long-running dispute over pay.
And Prince William says online safety must be a priority after the death of 14-year-old Molly Russell. She took her own life in 2017 after viewing social media posts which the NSPCC says no child should see.
And if you've got a view, let us have it, please. It would be lovely to hear from you on those serious stories and on other things as well, like it's the 1st of the month. Do you make a 1st of the month resolution? What is it? gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Also hurtling towards Christmas, so if you've got a view on that, get in touch. We'll run through all of those
People are
very
already
soon.
starting to talk about Christmas, particularly as you've got to take into account a postal workers' strike as well. So if you're going to do your shopping online, you've got to get it done early.
Send your Christmas cards out this week. Could be the way forward. Anyway, our main news this morning, and as the cost of living crisis continues to affect households, energy regulator Ofgem has announced an energy price cap for domestic homes in England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Changes today.
And this all comes as the average household energy bill is set to rise from £1,971 to £2,500. That's nearly double what it probably was for you last winter.
Well, to cope with the squeeze, the government set up a range of support for businesses, charities and public sector organisations under what they call the new Energy Bill Relief Scheme.
Meanwhile, the independent energy research firm Cornwall Insight estimate that the scheme is going to cost that government £25 billion. Our reporter Thea Chikomba has more.
Libraries are often a place to come and delve into a book, but here there's more. Suffolk libraries are opening their doors to meet the needs of communities across the county as the cost of living increases.
Our colleagues who work at all of our sites spend every day chatting to people in the local community and understanding what their needs are. And a lot of those conversations obviously are people talking about their, definite concerns about the cost of living and the rising pressures on their own personal budgets.
And that's why they're expanding their services here in Ipswich, where they're seeing more people come for financial and emotional support.
Especially of late, people coming in and using the food banks and talking to us, and it is heartbreaking to see that people are suffering, but at the same time it's very rewarding that they know that they can come to the library as a safe, warm environment and they will be offered some support and kindness. I think at the moment, with prices and everything going up, the one thing we can give for free is kindness and support.
From today, the wholesale energy price will be discounted for 6 months. Prices will be fixed at £211 per megawatt per hour for electricity and £75 per megawatt per hour for gas, which the government say is less than half of the wholesale prices anticipated this year. Meanwhile, in London, this church near Covent Garden turned on their heating for the first time this week as temperatures are starting to drop. Their main source of heating is oil, which isn't capped. But will the discount for their electricity and gas help their bills to go down?
We hope that some of that offset from electricity and gas will set off some of the cost of the oil. So it is going to make a difference to us. What size that's going to be, we don't know yet, but it will make some difference. It all depends on what all costs are like and how much we have to use to keep the building warm.
The scheme has been welcomed by many businesses and organisations who feared sharp rises this winter. But industry experts still question what will happen after New Year when the government reviews who will be eligible for support in the long term. Theo Chikomba, GB News.
Well, what does this whole price cap thing mean? Because it gets a bit confusing, doesn't it? It's not as though you're only going to pay £2,500. It's not a cap. It's a cap on the unit of energy. So you could still spend
cap
more.
On the rate at which you pay, I guess. Well, let's find out a bit more from energy consultant Catherine Porter. Good morning, Catherine. Hi. I mean, are we right to say, basically, it isn't a cap, and if you think it is, it's not the most you could ever pay. It's a cap on the rate. So if you use a lot of electricity, you're still going to pay more.
That's exactly right. It's the number that you hear, this £2,500, is based on the average consumption. And if you use more than the average, you'll pay more. And if you use less, then you pay less.
OK, so what are we to make of the figure itself and how much the price cap would have been if the government had hadn't jumped in?
Well, without this action from the government, it was going to rise to just over £3,500 for this period between October and January. But then it was going to keep going up. And some estimates were forecasting it would be over £6,000 come April. So this step by the government to fix it at £2,500 for 2 years is actually going to save households quite a lot of money.
Yeah, and you just said it's for 2 years, so we can count on that cap being in place for that long.
Yes, the government is committed to that. For this winter and the next 6 months, households also have the additional £400 rebates that was announced earlier in the year, and that will be applied to each month, either at £66 or £67 per month. So that brings down the bill for this winter a little bit more.
It's going to be very hard, though, for people, isn't it? Because whatever we sort of see is the positive news, the good news from the government on this one, our bills still go up from today.
That's right, and unfortunately that's reflecting what's happening in the wholesale markets. We have a situation that because of the war in Ukraine, European countries are trying to reduce the gas that they buy from Russia, and Russia's pretty aggressively cut the volumes that it's sending into Europe. And so that gas has to be replaced from other sources. And there's not really enough gas in the world at the moment to fully replace all of those Russian volumes. And that's why prices have gone up so much. This will ease over time as new upstream gas projects come online around the world. But that's going to take a few years, maybe 3 to 5 years, before prices go back to where they were before.
So the message to the consumer is, as before, is no matter if the headlines look a little bit more positive, you're still going to have to drastically cut back on your use of energy in order to keep your own personal bills down.
Well, unfortunately, that's the case, yes. I mean, the government can only do so much, and this support it's putting in place, as your report said, is going to be very expensive. In the short term, the government's going to pay for that by borrowing more money, but eventually that's going to have to be recovered through taxation.
I mean, the issue is if you say prices aren't going to get back down to what we would sort of normally expect for 3 to 4 years, and this price cap is only going to be in place for 2, there's at least a potential that in a couple of years, come the time of a general election, it could absolutely go through the roof.
No, I mean, it's not likely to go through the roof. Over that period of time, we'll see prices declining gradually back towards their historic levels as all of these new projects come on stream. So it's not going to be a sort of cliff edge at any point. And although we might see in the short term prices going up because we see maybe disruption to infrastructure, we've seen that in the past week with Nord Stream. There are also some potential for disruption to the routes through Ukraine, bringing gas into Europe. So in the short term, that can have a negative effect. But as we move through the next few years and after the end of this support scheme, prices will have come down. I don't think there's anybody who believes that prices won't be declining at that point. And I'm sure the government will reassess the situation when this 2-year scheme expires to see if more support is needed.
OK, well, thanks very much indeed, Catherine Porter, for that. Yes, it certainly would become a huge general election issue.
Well, yes, the timing of that.
The timing of that.
Yeah.
It's obviously going to be an enormous issue then.
It is, which actually is
good thing.
It's good for us because it means they'll all be competing to make sure we do all right out of it. Sandra's been in touch. Morning, Sandra. Says the best item I bought was a portable gas heater. Average price of a bottle is £40 and it heats up the room using only 1 bar. So, size, I mean...
Have you got your central heating on yet? Have you got any form of heating on in the house yet?
I'm always a bit worried about having gas.
I am too. I don't like the sound of it.
I remember when I was a kid, all the power cuts and everything in the 70s, we used to have a paraffin heater.
I remember paraffin heaters.
Yeah. I'd get the paraffin heater. But I don't know if I'd feel... I mean,
wouldn't know.
They wouldn't sell them now if they weren't safe, all the stuff, but you do worry a little bit about these things.
We've just got so used to using energy whenever we think about it, don't we?
Yeah.
And then we've got the rail strikes to deal with, and it is hitting people hard. Paul says, my son has just started studying at Brighton University. He's in his first year. But he had his driving test booked for Wednesday the 5th in Birmingham, where we live. We've had to reschedule now because of the rail strikes. And Carl said a similar thing. He said, regarding the rail strikes, my son booked a ticket in advance to come from Manchester to Dorset yesterday. He has to go back for work later today. So I'd like to say a big thank you to the train strikers, because now I have to drive to Manchester and back in a day. And that's a long way from Dorset.
Oh, I mean, that's awful.
That's just what we were saying is the problem, isn't it? That we're living in a society where we should be using public transport more to reduce pollution and to reduce congestion on the roads. This is causing it today.
Well, it is causing it today, but perhaps it needs to be caused to
well, even Norman
these
Baker
people
said,
out.
didn't he, that the solution is to give them a pay rise and address their concerns.
Anyway, let us know what you think. As always, gbviews at gbnews.uk. It is 7:11. Let's bring you up to date with the headlines. And the Chancellor has defended his mini-budget, saying the government had to do something different to spark the economy. Writing in The Telegraph today, Kwasi Kwarteng insisted he'll produce a credible plan to get public finances back on track by tightly controlling public spending.
The TUC, the Trades Union Congress, is warning the Prime Minister she faces a, quote, tsunami of court cases if she introduces new legislation on strikes. In last week's so-called mini-budget, the Chancellor announced plans to introduce minimum service levels during transport strikes and plans to require unions to ballot their members over pay offers.
The Prince of Wales says children's online safety must not be an afterthought. That comes after a coroner ruled that social media contributed to the death of the schoolgirl Molly Russell. An inquest concluded the 14-year-old's death in 2017 was caused by an act of self-harm after viewing thousands of posts related to self-harm and suicide on Instagram and Pinterest.
And landlords in Scotland who own Airbnb-style short-term lets now have until April the 1st next year to get licensed, or they won't be able to take guests. The Scottish Government says safety standards will be improved, with hosts required to take fire and gas safety precautions and have buildings and public liability insurance.
South Korea's military says North Korea has fired 2 missiles towards the sea. Its 4th launch in a week comes just a day after South Korea, the US and Japan staged anti-submarine exercises off the Korean peninsula for the first time in 5 years.
Seeing those pictures of massive missiles going through the streets of North Korea, I mean, you can't believe that any nation thinks that's something to be proud of.
But doesn't it take you back to the 80s?
Yeah.
You know, we're all worried about the 3-minute warning and all that
there were all
sort of thing.
these huge, parading weapons of mass destruction as though it's something to be proud of.
But what are we going to see on Monday? Because in Red Square there's going to be this announcement by Putin, isn't it, about his annexation of those areas of Ukraine, a big announcement, and you wonder if there's going to be huge military parades and all the rest of it.
It's horrific. I think there will. It's reminiscent of the 1930s almost, isn't it? Absolutely horrible.
Now, if you need reminding, which you probably don't, only about 1 in 9 trains are running today as strikes decimate the rail network in the biggest union action so far this year. Members of the RMT, ASLEF and the TSSA unions are on picket lines this morning in a closely coordinated blow to the rail industry.
And that action, of course, is likely to disrupt the plans of those travelling to take part in London's marathon tomorrow. Our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis joins us for the very latest on this. Any action behind you there, Will, or is it all very, very quiet?
Good morning. Yes, it is very quiet. There are a few people that I've spoken to that have been looking at the boards and thinking, how am I going to get to where I need to be? I promised you a picket line. There's a picket line just setting up a few metres away from me where I've already seen an RMT green flag waving in the wind. It's not just the RMT, as you said in the intro. There's also the ASLEF Drivers Union, the TSSA and Unite's union members that are all on strike. And all of that adds up to around 54,000 members of those unions that would usually be working on trains on a day like today on strike instead. It's 11% of trains running. Some parts of some lines closed completely, some stations closed completely, and even some operators not operating any trains within their region. It is going to have a massive impact. There are things that you mentioned there, the Conservative Party conference, football games, and of course the London Marathon. The party conference and the marathon start tomorrow. So despite this being a train strike for today and no train strikes tomorrow, there's going to be a trickle effect, and there's still going to be a lot of delays in the morning as the process kind of fires up again. Just to bring you back to where we are though here in Derby, operators, the East Midlands Railway, they're advising you to look for updates. The intercity route which operates Derby, Nottingham, Leicester and down to London, there's only one train running today. One train running every hour, whereas there would usually be 2 trains every hour, so a severely reduced timetable here. If you wanted to go to London from other big cities, good luck, because Edinburgh, Manchester, Birmingham and Newcastle, to name a few, there are no trains running from those cities into London today. Mick Lynch, who is the General Secretary of the RMT, who's become a bit of a figurehead for this movement, even though it is only one union that he represents. You often see him in interviews, often running rings around some interviewers. He's become a bit of a Twitter sensation. He says that the summer of solidarity we have seen will continue into the autumn and winter if employees and the government if the government continues to refuse workers' demands. So what he's saying quite clearly is if we don't come to a deal, if we don't negotiate, then you are going to see many more of these strikes throughout summer. Of course, it's not just on the rail. Postal workers are on strike today as well as they were yesterday. And only about half an hour ago, I saw the postal workers that had been on a picket line that had been doing the night shift. They came into Derby train station. They were looking for a train, and unfortunately, there was no train for them to get back to where they needed to go.
OK, Will, for now, thank you.
Well, let's speak now to former RMT Assistant General Secretary Steve Headley about those strikes. What are you feeling at the moment? Are you feeling any sort of change in attitude towards them?
Well, I think the only change is for the worse, really. We've had the voodoo economics and the high priestess of voodoo economics, Liz Truss, exacerbated an already bad situation. People hadn't had a pay rise in 3 years. We've now had this car crash of a mini budget. People's energy bills are already through the roof, and now their mortgage rates are about to follow. So the reality is that working class people are being asked to pay for the crisis. They bail out the bankers' bonuses and tax cuts for the already rich. And it's a completely unacceptable situation. So workers out there are more determined than ever to see this through and get a decent pay rise.
What about and we ask you about this every time you come on, but what about the public perception in all of this? Because for strikes to work, you need general public backing, don't you?
Well, that's not really true, because if it was all down to public support, the nurses would be millionaires and the politicians would be on minimum wages. So although public support is important, it's not actually essential to win a strike. But having said that, public support's holding up massively because everybody really is in the same boat. Everybody's getting hammered with their bills. Wages in the public sector have been suppressed for a decade. The idea that public sector or indeed wage rises are fueling inflation is completely fallacious. We all know what's fueling this. It's the war in the Ukraine. It's a supply line crisis during COVID. And it's economic mismanagement by this government. They've let inflation get completely out of control. And they want working people to actually pay the price for it, and it's just not on.
We had Norman Baker on just a while ago, about half an hour ago, who said that actually even he feels that your concerns need to be addressed, that you need a decent pay rise. He actually used those words, I think, decent pay rise. But that maybe you have some things to give on as well. I mean, is there any room for real negotiation yet?
Well, let's negotiate about people who are on £1 million getting £55,000 extra a year.
Yeah, but now you're making it political rather than just addressing your members.
Life's political.
And the railways.
Life is political. Political decisions have meant that our members haven't had a pay rise in 3 years. Political decisions mean people that are on £160,000 will get a £10,000, in effect, a £10,000 extra a year. People on £1 million a year will get an extra £55,000 a year. That's all political decisions. Don't tell me there's no money in the economy when people at the very, very top end of the economy are getting massive pay rises. Bankers are getting unlimited bonuses again. Where did that lead last time? To a massive recession. It led to a car crash economy.
But what Anne said was, what can the unions give on this? And one thing that was outlined by Kwasi Kwarteng is saying, well, look, take a poll on any offers that are made. Ballot your members on pay rise offers that are made. Because that's the argument, isn't it? That offers are made and the unions reject it.
So let me give you a scenario then. They offer us 2%. We have to ballot on 2% when our members have lost 20% over the past 3 years.
But why not?
Hold on. Let me finish. We then have a ballot on the 2%. Our members reject that. They offer us 2.5%. So we've got to ballot on 2.5%. They offer us 2.6%. We have to ballot on that. It's absolutely ridiculous. When they come up with an offer that's in line with inflation, of course the union are going to ballot its members. Members have taken strike action, but they've got to come up with a reasonable offer. Why would we ballot for something we know that our members are going to reject? It's a waste of time. And basically, what we have...
It's democratic, isn't it?
Well, let's have a referendum on every decision the government takes. If that's democracy, if you want direct democracy and not representative democracy for everything, let's have a plebiscite on whether we should have the top rate of tax cut. Let's have a plebiscite on all these economic car crash measures that Trust is introducing. What we will do as a trade union, what every trade union does, we take soundings from our members, and when our members tell us, well, look, we're there or we're nearly there, that's when we have a ballot and a referendum of members.
I mean, is that... Well, I mean, if that's the case, that's certainly one way of doing it. I think part of the issue is it doesn't seem transparent, does it? People aren't necessarily aware that that's what you're doing. I mean...
Well, of course people are aware of it, but they dress it up. Government ministers are more than aware of processes within the trade union movement because the legislation is there. We've got to have people balloted in order to take strike action. When a reasonable offer comes in, we've said, the unions have said that they want the pay rise in line with inflation. When an offer is made in line with inflation, then that will be balloted on. But why would they ballot on a derisory offer just to waste time and wear down the membership? It's a ridiculous idea.
I put it to you a minute ago that maybe you were making it political. Do you think that the other side are making it political as well? I mean, Liz Truss, a lot of her rhetoric is very evocative of Thatcher. Do you think she's trying to do a Margaret Thatcher on you and smash the unions?
Well, look, first of all, life is political. People may think that they aren't political, but politics cares about them even if they don't care about politics. For the minute you turn on your light in the morning, it's a decision. Is that a private company that's supplying that light, or is it a public company that's going to keep prices down? So let's face it, Truss, I think, is some sort of throwback. She's not Margaret Thatcher. She's a point-shop Margaret Thatcher. She's a wannabe Margaret Thatcher. At least Thatcher had the strategic ability, to plan out what she wanted to do with the economy. I didn't like the woman. I didn't like her policies. I thought she was very divisive, attacked working-class people. What we have in Truss is a complete amateur in charge. I mean, the IMF are intervening. The Bank of England are intervening because Kwarteng and Truss have driven the economy over a cliff edge. That's what's happening. And instead of going, yeah, hands up, we've done something wrong here, they're blaming Putin. Well, unless Putin wrote the budget, I really don't see that as a feasible excuse.
Steve, we've got to leave it there. Good to talk to you this morning, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, talking about getting up and switching the lights on and worrying about it, Audrey says, I was up at 6 a.m, I checked my smart meter. It showed 72 pence. Add 52 pence standing charge, that's £1.24, before I even put the kettle on, or my TV, or lights. I'm dreading putting the oven on.
Yeah, the smart meters are handy, yet scary.
Very scary.
Anyway, look, we've got much more to come for you in a couple of minutes, including all the sports news from Aidan, so don't go anywhere.
Hello, good morning. A bright start out there, and compared with yesterday, a brighter day to come, but it stays breezy. There'll be further showers, especially in the north and the west. Low pressure remains in control, that low pressure sitting towards Iceland, and we keep the tightly packed isobars, but the very strongest winds and the most persistent wet weather, well, that's moved out of the way into the near continent. So left behind, we've got this brisk westerly airflow, a rash of showers already into Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and they'll develop a bit more widely into the Midlands, Eastern England, Eastern Scotland by the afternoon. So I don't think anyone will be immune from seeing a shower. They'll be fairly fleeting, I think, and short-lived in the east, whilst frequent and heavy towards the northwest, accompanied by that strong wind. That's going to make it feel cool, whilst I think in the south and the east, where we get a bit of shelter from the breeze, where we get a bit of sunshine, 18 or 19 Celsius, will feel pleasant enough. The showers in the south and the east tend to fade away as the sun goes down, but I think on Saturday night we'll keep showers going for Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England as well. In the south, drier, but actually later in the night, thicker cloud and some spells of rain push back into the southwest. That'll keep things mild, 13 Celsius here, 8 to 11 Celsius elsewhere. Some sunshine first thing through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia. A fine day through this central swathe, but in the south, well, thicker cloud turns up and some persistent and at times heavy rain, especially towards the southwest and then other parts of the south coast. South Wales could see some rain for a time as well. And it's going to feel cool under that rain with a brisk breeze. But through the central swathe, high teens, pleasant enough. Further showers to come in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Monday sees further showers again in the north, followed by more persistent rain later. Much drier further south.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News. $7:29, morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
And we're joined by Aidan McGee to take us through the sports world. What's happening today?
Plenty of stuff happening this weekend, Anne. Good to see you both, first of all. We've got a derby weekend this weekend, so we've got Tottenham and Arsenal kicking off at 12:30 today. Really interesting, that one, because for the first time in a while, they're really going against each other at the top of the table. They did have a little bit of run-in at the end of last season. Tottenham really reeled them in. And I wonder if there's a psychological element going into today's match. The only thing I would say is that it's at the Emirates Stadium, the home of Arsenal. The away team has only won this game probably about once, I think it is, back in 2014. In the last probably about 10 years. Tottenham won twice away to Arsenal in 30 years, since 1993. So, I mean, it tends to be a side where the away team struggles. But I just think that Arsenal might have a bit too much for them today, just because they're at home. They've got a little bit of momentum behind them. They won 6 out of 7 games. But the other derby game this weekend, of course, is Manchester United against Manchester City.
Big one.
Tomorrow, again, Man United have really turned their season around. We discussed, didn't we, about a month ago, how badly they were doing. They got thrashed 4-1 at Brentford. They lost 2-1 at home to Brighton the week before. But they've turned it around since then. You can't say it's just been a run of easy fixtures. I mean, Liverpool at home, they beat 2-1. They beat Arsenal at home 3-1. They won against Southampton and Leicester, but that was away from home, both of those. They didn't concede a goal. Marcus Rashford's just got Player of the Month. So, again, a month ago we were saying, should he have stayed at Man United? What's happening with his career? He could force his way back into the World Cup reckoning quite easily with that happening just 6 weeks away. And I think everyone will be pleased to see that. So, some excellent games today. We've got Liverpool against Brighton. Liverpool, interesting one there, because Trent Alexander-Arnold is a right-back for England. He is such a talent, he really is, but he's been omitted from the last England squad. He's loved by his club manager. He's just not fancied by Gareth Southgate.
Why, do you think?
Well, there seem to be some problems around his defending. Now, Gareth Southgate might be a bit old school. He expects his right-backs to be able to defend. Now, that's not to negate his attacking quality, but in a modern fullback, they're expected to do both. Klopp says, look, he would be in my team any day of the week. Now, I remember back in the late 90s, France had another problem, because a similar problem. They had too many good players in one position. So in France 98, we didn't see David Ginola, we didn't see Eric Cantona, we didn't see Jean-Pierre Papin, because they had this other bloke called Zinedine Zidane, and they can't all fit into one team. So they've got 3 options at full-back. They've got Reece James, who's been exceptional for Chelsea the last couple of seasons as well, young player. You've got Kieran Trippier, who's appeared in the Champions League final in recent times, did very well for England in the 2018 World Cup, and he's seen as a backup. And, Stephen, you have to make a decision now and again. You have to say, look, OK, if you can have 10 world-class players for one position, but only one's going to play.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah, it's tough though, isn't it?
Yeah, but again, it's an interesting. I mean, I think the Premier League like this idea of having a derby match on a Saturday and another one on a Sunday.
Called derbies.
I don't know. It's interesting. Overseas managers look at the spelling of derby and they call them a derby game, which, you know, that's a separate thing altogether. But I don't really know why they're called derby. It might be a horse racing reference or something.
It is, I think. I looked it up a while ago and
Did
can't
you?
remember what the answer was. But it was something to do with, it's just, because of the horse racing thing, it was just seen as the big deal. You know, the big deal match or something.
It gets confused, though.
I mean, there are a lot of big games going on.
They are. I mean,
How are people going to get to them, I wonder?
Well, this is the issue. I mean, one of our producers is going down to Bristol today to watch QPR. He couldn't get there because he looked at it. I think he was due to finish at 12 today before he knew he was off duty, and he was going to get a train direct from here to Paddington. Sorry, from Paddington directly next door to us to Bristol. Not an option. He's having to drive. Yeah. So I don't know if that's going to affect the numbers. My nephew's coming back from Bristol today. Because he's got a couple of things he needs to tend to here. But again, he's having to get that bus that takes about 4 days. It's quite cheap. It's about £7. It's got Wi-Fi. He's happy.
Yeah.
But Derby, what's confusing about Derby?
Very difficult.
Derby is that when you actually play against Derby County. So when you say I've got a derby on Saturday, you think, well, we haven't got any derbies in our division.
We've got Derby away.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, it's very confusing.
It is.
Aidan, thank you. We're going to catch with you a little bit later.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Oh,
yes, lots more to come. Do keep up to date with all the headlines making this morning's papers. That's coming up in just a couple of moments.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
£7:35, here's one for you. Roger, morning Roger, says I was on a call to my utility company yesterday and asked why the electricity prices have gone through the roof when we have a gas problem through Russia. He couldn't tell me. So why does the gas issue affect electricity? It's bizarre, because most of our
gas to make electricity.
Yeah, most of our electricity in this country is generated through burning gas.
Yep, absolutely.
So.
And Warren doesn't like the idea of these gas bottle heaters that we were talking about earlier. Gas bottle heaters can be very dangerous. When living in Cornwall a few years ago, a share fisherman in a cottage. No, I might have to. I might have to check that one. It doesn't make any sense at the moment.
Yes.
Probably the way it's been typed out. Sorry about that.
Yes.
I'll come back to that.
We'll come back to that, Warren. But, Be a little bit careful. Let's go through the papers now with former Deputy Research Director of the Free Speech Union, Emma Webb, and chortling broadcaster Pete Price. Morning.
I thought it was just me that made mistakes. I love it.
No.
I just can't make any sense of it at all, so we'll move on.
No. Love it.
Actually, Pete, you've got a nice story about one of Britain's oldest women.
Yes, she's 109 years old, and she's got 2 grandchildren, 6 great-great-grandchildren, 10 great-great-great-great-grandchildren.
Wow.
She lives in care in Oxford, and the oldest lady in this country is reportedly 113 years old. First of all, happy birthday to this lovely, lovely, lovely lady.
So she's 109?
She's 109, Winifred, so happy birthday to her. I wonder if she'll get the telegram, first of all, because there's a changeover.
King Charles telegram.
King Charles telegram, which is great. The reason I picked
You get
this
one
story,
every year after you turn 100.
Yeah, you do, yeah. The reason I picked this story was actually for a serious situation. I'm getting older now and I want to live forever, as we all do. But when you get to the age of 109, and I interviewed a lovely lady at 100 years ago who made me a cup of tea, 100 years old, she just got up and made a cup of tea. But she said the most tragic thing about living as long as this, I lose so many people I love. They lose.
So there is, they say,
there is a sad side to this that really upsets me. But I was so pleased to think she's 109. We are living old.
To what does she attribute her long...
Bacon butties and a sleep-in.
Bacon butties?
Bacon butties and a sleep-in.
Oh.
Yeah.
I always love it when you get
Sign
these.
me up.
Remember years ago, you used to get people saying, "Why are you doing so well at such a great age?" And they used to say, "Well, I have a whiskey every night and a couple of cigarettes and all."
But you see, people like this lived, and I'm of that, not of that age, but I'm old. But people like this, we lived when we played out and ate dirt. We didn't have all these coughs and colds because we were just rough and ready, and we ate dripping and stuff like that. I know, but it's not that we were pulling faces. We had no money.
Oh, I know, but
we were poor.
Bread and dripping and all that. Ooh,
depends on how good the dripping is and what it was made from.
Oh well,
from turkey, it was fab. Turkey, what was that?
Done you any harm?
Not done me any harm.
No, Emma, can we talk about Philip Schofield, because the Sun's got that? I love it.
Front page.
So Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby, I'm sure everyone will have seen, got in a lot of trouble for allegedly queue jumping, something that they deny, and also the channel denies it. They say that they were there to film a programme. Phil has now been axed from his role on the adverts for We Buy Any Car.
I love the inside spread where they've done We Dump Any Star.
They actually claim that this has nothing to do with the queue jump. Is the case or not? But I know that there are a lot of calls for them to be sacked from this morning. A petition has now reached 75,000 signatures.
They're not going anywhere.
No,
as
they're not.
As an arch monarchist, I really don't think that they should be fired. I think that all of this that has been kicked up is really disproportionate to
a lot of it's social
happened.
media hate.
Yeah, and they say that, and the channel says that they weren't skipping the queue, that they were there for work purposes. That may be the case, in which case it's very disproportionate. But even if they had queue jumped, I still think the level of vitriol against them is just more outrage mongering, really.
I'm not their greatest fans in any shape or form, but I think it's disgusting the way they're treated. I think we're living in a horrible society now because of social media. It's got its good points, but I think this is disgraceful.
They've done
nothing
fired
wrong.
left, right and centre.
Done nothing wrong.
A lot of that.
Absolutely shocking.
Pete, let's talk rail services. You got down here then today.
I said I'd get down here.
We were keeping our fingers crossed that you wouldn't make it.
I was supposed to be doing a gig tonight. They very kindly let me out of the gig because of what's happened. You can't get trains from anywhere. It's chaos. What I think is sad about this particular weekend, thousands of runners will miss the start of the marathon because they have to actually check in at 5:30 today to go. 50,000 competitors. So many charities will make money out of this. You know, small charities. Before anyone starts saying, last time I mentioned it, the money, these big charities, these are small charities. And I think it's very sad and it doesn't make any sense because I've spoke to some rail people and they don't even know what the strike's about. That was from rail people I met in Liverpool. I got down. There's another rail strike next weekend and one on Tuesday. I mean, it's just chaos. We've just been through a pandemic. I, unfortunately, didn't get any furlough along with millions and millions of people. I believe the rail people did get paid furlough, which I never got anything. So I'm now trying to make a living. I now can't make a living anymore.
Did you have a go at Steve Headley, our RMT man, outside, maybe?
No, he shook my hand and went. No, I tried to, but and he went. And then the telly went off in the middle of the interview.
Oh, did
so
it?
I didn't hear everything you said, but I thought you two handled yourself well. I just think it's sad.
I could just imagine the green room. You wouldn't be able to resist having a go at him, but you didn't.
Missed it. Missed it.
At least you didn't barge in.
But it is sad, and I feel sorry for the people who are struggling, and there are so many cases about it. But, I mean, the cleaners on the trains deserve getting paid more.
It's also a false economy in many ways because it's harming the economy for everyone, and they are also part of that. And so, if they want public, money to be spent on, the railways or anything like that, demanding higher salaries when we're in a financial crisis and your actions are actually harming the economy that you need to pay you, I think it just seems like a false economy.
But strikes always do that, don't they? I mean, that's why you go on strike. You're trying to make.
They do, but if you're trying to line yourself up for success, then you should probably look at the context in which you're striking.
The only time I went on strike was I was working a place for 10 years and they got rid of me and said I was earning too much money, so I picketed outside. They went bankrupt the week after, but that's another story.
Oh, that must have felt good.
I was pleased.
All right, if you're making too much money.
I wasn't making too much money. I was making a little bit of money.
All right, yeah. Emma, can we look at the Telegraph and the Chancellor? Because he's now promising to bring the economy under control.
Yes, there's an awful lot in today's papers about the economy for obvious reasons, because it's been a very chaotic week. It's really been a case of putting the cart before the horse, I think. The Chancellor announcing all of these tax cuts without announcing the reforms and the ways in which they're going to pay for those tax cuts, sent the markets into complete disarray. The political communications on this have been absolutely terrible. It's then led to a knock-on political crisis. Now the Chancellor, he also has a comment piece in today's Telegraph as well, explaining the reasoning behind this, which I think is actually very justifiable. But like I say, the political communications have just been so bad. And it's actually seems to have led to Labour having a 20 to 33 point lead in the polls as the Conservatives are going into their conference on Monday. And there's just a line I wanted to read out here from Kwasi Kwarteng's piece in the Telegraph justifying their decision with the mini budget. He says, low growth makes it harder to pay for public services. That raises the overall tax burden, which in turn reduces the incentives to work and returns on investment. So this to me seems justified. I'm not an economic expert. But the way in which the government have communicated this has been abominable. Kwasi Kwarteng obviously trying to mend some bridges. How far that will go with the MPs who are now in a mini revolt against Liz Truss, I do not know.
No, and of course, the problem now with politics is, I put it like football managers lose 2 games, they want them sacked.
Yeah.
And there is a crisis, whether we like it or not, and something's got to be done, and it's going to be painful, whatever, whoever.
It is. It is. Look, Emma, Pete, we've got to leave it there, I'm afraid, but we'll catch with you a little bit later on. Thank you. Now, Saddleworth Moor is being investigated by police today. You've no doubt heard about this yesterday, because human remains thought to be of a child around 12 years old have been found there.
Now, the only child to have gone missing and not be found on the moor, victim of the moor's murderers, is Keith Bennett, who was lured into a van on June the 16th, 1964 by Myra Hindley and Ian Brady.
Well, let's talk to Peter Blexley, former Scotland Yard detective, who joins us now. I mean, Peter, this would be the most remarkable breakthrough if Keith Bennett has been found.
Yes, indeed it would, and we'll wait to see the results of tests. Let's hope they don't take very long. And it's all the more remarkable if these are poor Keith's remains, because, of course, they were found by a citizen. by an author, not by the police. This just goes to show the power of the citizen sleuth, the armchair detective, the power of the podcasts, which we increasingly are hearing about. And it's a very clear indication that the police's monopoly on investigating crime has quite simply been broken. And across many aspects of law and order, private individuals and private companies are doing the work that the police used to do.
You could say that, but on the other hand, this particular author has made it his life's work. I mean, I know the police should be sort of doing that as well, but they have other cases. This man has just concentrated on the Moors murders for years and years, and does appear now to have come up with something. As you say, we don't really know what they've found, but clearly the activity that the police are now carrying out there means that this is serious. It could be him.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. And we've already heard about thrown back, bone fragments, possibly part of a jaw, some decomposed clothing. And clearly it's going to be a major job to properly excavate this. But once again, if indeed these are poor Keith Bennett's remains, then Mr. Edwards, the author who has dedicated 7 years to trying to unravel this mystery, will be deserving of enormous praise. And great credit to him and anybody, of course, who has funded him, because Mr. Edwards did this very responsibly with geological architects and the like. He didn't just go up there with a bucket and spade. He did this absolutely correctly. And when an early indication of human remains were found, he then in turn had a member of his team contact the police. So it would appear to me that he's done absolutely everything properly and correctly, but it does beg the question, well, why haven't the police done this? Why couldn't they have found the remains earlier?
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because, I mean, the one thing we know about the moors there, I mean, they're vast, and also they were led on by Ian Brady particularly. So many sort of wild goose chases around there. I mean, it must have been absolutely disheartening for the detectives involved. And, of course, Winnie Johnson.
Yes, and of course, poor Winnie, Keith Bennett's mum, she passed away in recent years and never saw the remains of her son found, and in turn, in that regard, was, of course, denied justice. And I'm very much victim-focused, because those who lose a loved one, they're the people that really, truly serve a life sentence, because they simply never get over such tragic loss. Keith Bennett's brother is still alive. He declined to make a comment yesterday, and I make no adverse comment whatsoever about that. I'm sure that he's waiting to see the results of these tests. And I hope against hope that actually it is poor Keith's remains that are found, so that this tragedy of over 50 years can be solved. And if there is any consolation to be had, well, at least Ian Brady and Myra Hindley are both dead now. So they won't be able to lead the authorities on wild goose chases like Brady in particular did whilst he was alive.
I don't suppose the police could have done anything else in the end, because many times Ian Brady suggested that if they just took him out to the moors, he might remember where he buried Keith Bennett. But it never came to any good, did it? Was he playing the police along, or do you think there was sincerity there?
Well, Brady, of course, was a psychopath, a severely deranged, wicked individual, and he used to try and play the power game. He led the authorities a merry dance for many, many years whilst he was incarcerated, by going on hunger strike, by leading the police down blind alleyways, and really, in his own pathetic little world, tried to manipulate the establishment and every form of authority that had anything to do with his incarceration. It really is something that we need to be grateful for, that he no longer walks this planet.
Oh, Peter, we're just losing you, so we're going to leave it there because the line's just gone, but it was really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. It's... I just hope... I mean, isn't it remarkable that it just shows how wicked and evil that crime was? I mean...
That it still strikes you, doesn't it?
Still
when you start
today.
to talk about it. And anyone who... we both have interviewed Winnie Johnson, that's Keith Bennett's mother. And, yeah, your heart bled for her, because how do you go on living after that? I didn't realise there was a brother as well. Maybe that's the reason she was able to go on. But she campaigned to keep Myra Hindley in jail. She had to campaign because there were so many moves to let Myra Hindley out.
It's interesting though, because you interview a lot of people in this job over the years, and you talk to very few people like Winnie, who was just so salt the earth, if you like, no messing. She didn't it's almost like she didn't care she was on telly. She didn't. She had nothing to her. She didn't put on a telephone voice for an interview or anything like that, did she?
No.
She was just exactly how she was, and it was raw.
Yeah, you could see the agony that was still there, and she died, never knowing what had happened to her little boy. Well, she knew what had happened to him, but
where he was.
Yeah, not knowing where and that would have been such a comfort to her, I think. And I do hope that this turns out to be Keith Bennett. The police certainly do seem to be taking it very seriously. Forensic experts, lots of different independent forensic experts have been looking at the chemicals in the soil which suggest body decomposition.
If you hear
they might have found a child's skull.
What you hear from the author in all of this is that, and he said he used to, when he was a teenager, he used to dig graves and things. And he said he clearly has done his research, gone to this point, and he says he got about 2 feet down digging, and he could smell the decomposition. And it's a very distinctive smell, human decomposition.
But he paid for ground-penetrating radar and for drones to fly over certain areas that he thought were likely. He has made it absolutely his life's work, and he's clearly come up with something.
Let's keep our fingers crossed.
It reminds you a bit as well, Peter was talking there about the citizen sleuth. It reminds you a bit about the woman who discovered Richard III.
Yes, indeed, in
because
the car
again,
park.
it became her obsession, but she went about it in a totally thorough, investigative manner. And in the end, she found him.
That's remarkable.
It really was.
Well,
sometimes people are amazing.
Let's hope it sort of closes what is still an open wound for this country, I think.
Yes, I think it is. Exactly that.
Anyway.
We've been talking about dogs.
Oh, yes.
Because we've got a vet coming on a bit later on who's brought out his top 5 dogs that he would recommend. And you were saying how you want a Ridgeback.
Yes.
Now, Carol says, my neighbours have 2 Ridgebacks and they are lovely, friendly dogs. And I'm so glad you're having a rescue, Stephen, which is what I did when my previous dog died.
Yeah, see, a cat's a rescue. I'd only ever have a rescue pet now.
Oh, here we go. Mark in Croydon says, many years ago, I used to clean the windows at Cameron McIntosh's house in Somerset.
The musical fella?
Well, I think so. He had Ridgebacks and even had a big bronze statue of his favourite, which I believe was called Hugo.
I won't be getting any bronze statues, mate.
Hugo's a good name for a dog, though.
Hugo, this will be Rex. It's already been chosen.
Oh, you've already chosen?
Oh, yeah, it's nothing to do with me.
What if you get him and he doesn't look like a Rex?
He'll look like a Rex. A Ridgeback, they're huge. Sarah, though, has 2 Springer Spaniels. They're loyal, fun, intelligent, and need lots of exercise, which is great for your own health. That's the thing. Dogs do force you to go out, don't they?
They nag you, don't they? Fred says, my late wife had a poodle cross with a Jack Russell, which I still have. At 14 years old, very bright and loving, used to sit on her lap in her wheelchair. We now also have a Labrador Collie cross, 4 years old, very intelligent, protective, and the most loving animal ever.
You see, that's the thing. The love you get from an animal like that. I mean, Timmy, he's a cat. He'd be so affectionate. It follows you around the house like a dog.
Yeah, but he clearly, we were talking on the computer the other day, and he clearly is jealous of when you are talking on your laptop.
Oh.
Because he kept walking across.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't like, He's got to be
he was making a point.
He's got to be centre of attention. I mean, at night, he just plonks himself right in the middle between us.
Softy.
No show without punch.
What dogs would you recommend? We'll be talking to the vet a bit later on.
Yeah. Meanwhile, let's see what the weather's going to do for you.
Hello, good morning. A bright start out there, and compared with yesterday, a brighter day to come, but it stays breezy. There'll be further showers, especially in the north and the west. Low pressure remains in control, that low pressure sitting towards Iceland, and we keep the tightly packed isobars, but the very strongest winds and the most persistent wet weather, well, that's moved out of the way into the near continent. So left behind, we've got this brisk westerly airflow, a rash of showers already into Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and they'll develop a bit more widely into the Midlands, Eastern England, Eastern Scotland by the afternoon. So I don't think anyone will be immune from seeing a shower. They'll be fairly fleeting, I think, and short-lived in the east, whilst frequent and heavy towards the northwest, accompanied by that strong wind. That's going to make it feel cool, whilst I think in the south and the east, where we get a bit of shelter from the breeze, where we get a bit of sunshine, 18 or 19 Celsius will feel pleasant enough. The showers in the south and the east tend to fade away as the sun goes down, but I think on Saturday night we'll keep showers going for Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England as well. In the south, drier, but actually later in the night, thicker cloud and some spells of rain push back into the southwest. That'll keep things mild, 13 Celsius here, 8 to 11 Celsius elsewhere. Some sunshine first thing through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia. A fine day through the central swathe, but in the south, well, thicker cloud turns up and some persistent and at times heavy rain, especially towards the southwest and then other parts of the south coast. South Wales could see some rain for a time as well. And it's going to feel cool under that rain with a brisk breeze. But through the central swathe, high teens, pleasant enough. Further showers to come in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Monday sees further showers again in the north, followed by more persistent rain later. Much drier further south.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV.
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Households will see their energy bills rise as the new energy price cap comes into effect today.
Good morning to you. It is 8 o'clock. It's Saturday, the 1st of October. Happy new month. Happy winter, almost. That's what it feels like.
Yes, it does.
This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
And we're live across the whole of the UK on both your TV and your radio, online as well. So wherever you are, you can take us with you. Here are the top stories you need to know about right now.
Well, energy bills are going to rise for millions of households from today, but the increase is being cushioned by a government cap on the cost per unit. We'll find out how this affects you.
Also today, more strikes across the country, with train drivers going on industrial action for 2 days as part of a long-running dispute over pay.
And Prince William says online safety must be a priority after the death of 14-year-old Molly Russell. Molly took her own life in 2017 after viewing social media posts which the NSPCC says no child should see.
And of course, you know now, please do join in any of our discussions this morning. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Well, there's a lot going on today. 1st of October, 1st of the month, and unfortunately that means new prices on our energy bills, but they are being mitigated by the government to the tune of about £1,000.
Yes, and that comes into effect today. But we've been talking to so many industry experts already this morning who say that obviously that doesn't mean it will be capped for you, particularly because if you use more energy, you'll still have to pay more. It's just capping the rate at which they price gas, basically, or energy.
Yeah, which means for an average household, whatever that is, whatever that means, it should be about £2,500, this cap. But as I say, if you're a smaller household, you'll pay less. If you're bigger, use more, you'll pay more. So it's no excuse not to keep looking at the heating and all the rest of it that we're all doing.
And it's one of those dates, isn't it? 1st of October, do you give in and turn the heating on? Or are you just too scared to do that? I think a lot of people are. Because even I'm too scared to do it at the moment. I will not do it, but it is freezing in my house at the moment.
I've put half the heating on, just on the downstairs.
Well, you said you were going to heat one room, sort of thing.
Sort of thing.
Not the whole house.
Because it got down to 15 degrees and it was just, it was just freezing.
Yeah.
So
but this is only the 1st of October. It is going to get colder.
It is going to get colder. So we'll just have to see. Keeping a close eye on it, though. I certainly am. I bet you're doing the same. It's just what we've got to do at the moment. Anyway, so the price cap comes into force from today, that government price cap, which is lower than what it would have been. But, of course, to cope with this continuing squeeze, the government has also set up a range of support for businesses, charities and public sector organisations under what they're calling the Energy Bill Relief Scheme.
Yes, meanwhile, the independent energy research firm Cornwall Insight estimate that the scheme is going to cost the government £25 billion.
Yeah, our national reporter Theo Chikomba has more.
Libraries are often a place to come and delve into a book, but here there's more. Suffolk libraries are opening their doors to meet the needs of communities across the county as the cost of living increases.
Our colleagues who work at all of our sites spend every day chatting to people in the local community and understanding what their needs are. And a lot of those conversations obviously are people talking about their, definite concerns about the cost of living and the rising pressures on their own personal budgets.
And that's why they're expanding their services here in Ipswich, where they're seeing more people come for financial and emotional support.
Especially of late, people coming in and using the food banks and talking to us. And it is heartbreaking to see that people are suffering, but at the same time it's very rewarding that they know that they can come to the library as a safe, warm environment and they will be offered some support and kindness. I think at the moment, with prices and everything going up, the one thing we can give for free is kindness and support.
From today, the wholesale energy price will be discounted for 6 months. Prices will be fixed at £211 per megawatt per hour for electricity and £75 per megawatt per hour for gas, which the government say is less than half of the wholesale prices anticipated this year. Meanwhile, in London, this church near Covent Garden turned on their heating for the first time this week as temperatures are starting to drop. Their main source of heating is oil, which isn't capped. But will the discount for their electricity and gas help their bills to go down?
We hope that some of that offset from electricity and gas will set off some of the cost of the oil. So it is going to make a difference to us. What size that's going to be, we don't know yet, but it will make some difference. It all depends on what all costs look like and how much we have to use to keep the building warm.
The scheme has been welcomed by many businesses and organisations who feared sharp rises this winter. But industry experts still question what will happen after New Year when the government reviews who will be eligible for support in the long term. Theo Chikomba, GB News.
Well, let's talk to former CEO of Energy UK, Angela Knight, who's here. Good morning to you. Is it going to make any real difference, this price? Because what always strikes me with this is, and it's a big move and an expensive move by the government for us homeowners or renters or whatever we are. But it still means our prices are going up from today.
It does. It does. We can't do... You can't buck what's happening in the global markets, and that is the cause of the real problem that we've got here in the UK and in a number of other countries as well. Just be thankful we are actually here rather than in most European countries, because they're in a harder situation. I appreciate it doesn't exactly help each of us with our households to know that it's harder in France or in Spain. Well, France is not too bad at the moment, but it's going to get worse.
Because of their reliance on Russian gas?
Well, the problem with France is slightly different. France runs a very big nuclear fleet of power stations. About half of them are down at the moment for maintenance, but there's structural problems in there as well. Oh. So France itself is now going to have some difficulty this winter. And France has been a big exporter of electricity. But then you're absolutely right, Anne, that the whole issue, I suppose, in Europe is most noticeable in Germany, who had that huge reliance on just about, Russian gas, and Russian gas only, didn't even have any of the ports that you need to import liquefied natural gas. So we have got quite a difficult situation, to say the least. But as of today, not only have we got our cap here in the UK, but some of the wholesale prices have been coming down and are likely to continue to come down for a bit. So it's a bit of a better balance.
So what sort of levels are they coming down?
Oh, how long's a piece of string? It's not just what we may see or a few countries may see. A lot of it's going to be dependent on how cold the winter is, but also on what happens in the various countries in respect of their consumption. I mean, I would say in the UK we have been so sensitised about this that just about everybody is absolutely thinking about, how warm their house should be. Can they cool it down? What they're going to do about use of electricity, lights, and so on. And that is good as long as we still manage to keep those people who are in the difficult circumstances in a reasonable temperature. And there's a lot more assistance there. But in some of the European countries, they will see brownouts, they will see situations arise where public buildings, lights are down, they will have constraints on their use.
What do you mean by a brownout?
Oh, sorry, a brownout, yes. You have brownouts and blackouts. Yeah. But brownouts is sort of a smaller version than a blackout and for shorter periods of time. It's just a sort of technical terminology.
It's like going back to the 70s when in the evenings sometimes the power was cut.
Yeah, that is exactly right. That is exactly right. And that will happen.
Are we expecting...
But I don't think it will happen with us. I think we are all right. We've got a sufficient security there in place.
Because there was plenty of headlines about, power being cut through the winter and all the rest of it in the papers a few weeks ago.
There was.
Is that unlikely to happen then?
It's much less likely here. I mean, you can't say never for anything because you can have some, huge problem arise. And we've not got a particular surplus of supply, to say the least here. But we're much better placed because not only have we got a mixture of how we generate our electricity, but we have also, our own supply from the North Sea.
And
that is
like
something
France
other countries
and
don't have.
Germany are suffering badly, will that affect us at all?
Yes. Well, the effect that we'll get, I mean, your biggest problems are going to be Germany, Italy, possibly Spain. I have a younger son who lives in Spain and he already has power cuts anyway. France's is more, if you like, sort of, theirs is a problem they've caused themselves a bit by just not paying the sorts of money they should have done to keep, the standards up in their reactors, and they didn't actually get their building programme underway. But the reality of what can happen in Europe is that they will be wanting to suck in power, and of course we are connected to the European system. And we have traditionally taken a certain amount of power out of Europe in the difficult times. Now I suspect that we'll be asked to actually feed some power in.
Really?
So we're going to have to work out what we do about that. Well, over these last few months, what we've been doing for Europe is, as the liquefied natural gas, tankers come in, they've been coming into UK ports because we've got those ports. We've been gasifying that gas because it comes in liquid, turning it back into gas, putting it into the pipelines and exporting it into Europe. That's how come European storage has now got itself nearly full.
Right.
So we are part of a system, and boy, has this country been doing its bit. And yet none of this ever appears, you know. We all think, oh, we've got terrible problems. We have got problems, but we've also got some solutions here, and we've been really, really helpful, you know, in helping our other countries in Europe get themselves into a better position.
Just a quick one on wholesale prices.
Yes.
If they have been dropping,
yes,
will that get reflected by energy suppliers?
I doubt it, because they're still above the point at which, you know, the cap limits what we pay. But it will help, I think, as government looks to see what it's going to do for business after that first 6 months protection, which all businesses have got. And one of the aspects that government does need to look at very, very closely and quickly is how we price wholesale electricity, because we use that word energy, and energy means gas and electricity. And yes, they do connect, but actually, you know, we're completely exposed to the international market on gas. But in electricity, where we generate about 40%, you know, when the wind's blowing out of our own, you know, wind and solar, and we've also got our nuclear power stations still running, that means that as much of that is now generating prices that are considerably lower than gas, what we need to do is alter the calculation, which at the moment says the most expensive generator pulls the entirety of the price of the gas pool up. It's a bit early in the morning to explain it, and I probably haven't done it very well, so I apologise for that. But there's something there that we have to do to alter that pricing, because that then bakes in a lower cost of electricity, dramatically important for industry, who are the big electricity users.
Yeah. Lovely.
Gosh,
Angela.
you give us an insight into a world you don't even know.
No.
Have any idea?
Well, I come from the engineering industry. Before I got involved in other things, I was 15, 16 years in engineering. And so, you know, my mind always goes around and I think, well, how does that work? Well, let's go and have a look, you see. So, and in this area, it is a complicated area, and there's a lot of interconnecting, you know,
yes,
things.
It is all interconnected.
You know, it's a spaghetti, and it pulls together, and you can see sometimes which bits of the spaghetti need to be unwound, and there's quite a bit in some of that energy pricing.
Oh, well, we need to get you onto it, Angela. Thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure.
Talking about being interconnected, the rail network.
Yeah, the rail network. It's the biggest rail strike in Britain for 40 years, and it's underway now, with around 50,000 workers expected to walk out today.
Now, passengers are being warned not to try to travel if their journeys are not absolutely essential, as about 90% of normal train services have been cancelled today.
Well, we're joined now by our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, who has the very latest from us. Are you still in Derby there, Will?
Good morning. Yes, I've just switched the camera around a little bit because there is now a picket line just behind me. There are people that are on strike today from the RMT union, the ASLEF drivers union, the TSSA, and also Unites union. So those are people that do all sorts of different jobs and basically make sure that the trains are running. 54,000 of them, which means that only 11% of trains are running in this largest level of impact, in this closely coordinated level of impact, when we've been seeing so many of different train strikes throughout the previous weeks. This is certainly the biggest of its kind, and it is going to have an impact. There are trains running from Derby station, but it's one of the few stations where you are going to be able to get a train. The intercity route is going to be massively affected, so that's in and out of stations like Nottingham, Derby, Leicester, and then down to St Pancras, where it terminates in London. So there are trains running, but you are being advised by Network Rail and the National Rails not to travel unless it is absolutely necessary. There are things that are going to be impacted by this, of course. While it's not happening today, the start of the Conservative Party conference and the London Marathon, they both start tomorrow. So if you were hoping to get down there today, maybe you should look at other methods of getting down there. There is going to be a bit of a delay in the process of starting trains tomorrow, so you can expect that some of the trains that are timetabled tomorrow will be hampered a little bit. So especially if you are trying to get to the start of that London Marathon, where 50,000 runners are going to be running, you might find that that's a little bit difficult as well. Why is all of this happening? Of course, it's quite simple. It's to do with pay and conditions. Mick Lynch, who's become a little bit of a figurehead for the RMT union as well as other unions. He's the General Secretary of the RMT, and he's become quite famous on Twitter because of some of his interviews during this period of strikes. He's said that the summer of solidarity we have seen will continue into the autumn and to the winter if employers and the government refuse to meet reasonable demands. So you can expect to see more of this. It doesn't seem to be going away. Only a few hundred metres away from where I am at the postal office, the Royal Mail sorting office here in Derby, there's another picket line because communication workers' unions are on strike today. It seems that what most people from the conversations I've been having would like to see is a deal that's something in line with inflation, because cost of living is the real big driver for this. And in many big cities up and down the country, you'll see a campaign today called Enough is Enough, where thousands of people will be parading through major cities demanding that the government do more to change what's going on.
Hey, Will, thank you. Let's head to Leeds and our Yorkshire and Humber reporter, Anna Riley. Morning, Anna. A couple of people behind you, but I bet they're not... Are they picketers? Are they making their voices heard?
Good morning, Stephen. Yes, I'm at Leeds railway station where only a few trains are running here as the striking starts this month in October. There are RMT and train workers behind me on this picket line, and I'm also joined by Gaz Jackson. He is the Yorkshire and Lincolnshire organiser. Gaz, it's rumbling on, isn't it, these strikes? It started back in the summer. What are you hoping to get?
I'm hoping that our members can have a job at the end of all this, actually, because that's quite interesting. We've talked about pay rises and we've talked about terms and conditions, but ultimately, if we don't have a job, they don't matter. So what we need first is a security with jobs, and then we need to look at pay rising, and also that's why the members are really defending the terms and conditions as well.
You've been having lots of discussions with the government. Is there what would you accept? How far will you go?
So I think we need the government to unshackle the companies. I think that's the problem. The government and the DfT are controlling what the companies can do. If they say to the companies, go out and do a deal with the trade unions, I think we definitely could do it.
And it's, disrupting people. What has the public been saying? Because a lot of people are having to find alternate ways of transport, aren't they, during these rail strikes?
Yeah, any time we take industrial action, it's regrettable. Our members are losing money whilst they're still out here on strike. But the public support has been absolutely fantastic. I really find a change in the public mood of the support of people. So I think people understand what they're going to go through the winter, because people have got a decision this year. They're either going to put the heating on or they're going to have something to eat. So I think they understand why they're doing what they're doing.
And later on this morning, you're going to be joined by the protest group Enough is Enough. Obviously, they're standing in solidarity with the rail workers, the rail unions, on the cost of living.
Absolutely. I think it's an absolutely fantastic group of people that are bringing working class people together to actually stand together and say to the government, actually, enough is enough.
So hopefully you're going to get your message out there. And how many people are you expecting to come out today as part of that protest?
Yeah, so there's absolutely lots of protests around the country, so I'm expecting 100,000 people potentially across the country, but here in Leeds I'd probably say about 2,000 will turn out, which is absolutely brilliant.
Thank you, Gaz. Thank you for speaking with us. So yes, we've got these union members here, rail workers, and later on this morning that Enough is Enough protest where thousands of people are expected to join together throughout the city to protest about the cost of living there, asking the government to do more to support people that are looking to either have to heat their homes this month or eat.
OK, Anna Riley, thank you.
Thank you. Lovely, that banner behind her, that sort of stitched, fabric banner.
Oh, yeah. It is that. It's quite interesting when you see that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
they're traditional, aren't they?
It is very traditional.
Yeah, Chris says, my wood burner will cost around £120 to heat my open plan home over the winter. I only light it late afternoon and back up with a shovel of smokeless fuel before I go to bed. Nice and warm in the morning. Forget green, net zero and windmills.
Oh, Chris.
Apparently DIY stores are selling out of things that cut logs. What do I mean?
Axes?
Saws? Yeah, chainsaws.
Oh, chainsaws.
Yeah. Apparently DIY shops are selling out of chainsaws because people are going and finding wood and cutting it up to use in wood burners or whatever.
I can understand it, because if you buy wood, it's quite expensive now, because now it all has to be kiln dried or whatever it is now to. whatever
because
it
it has
is.
to be smokeless or whatever.
Yes. Ian from Essex says, why not build 3 brand new taxpayer-owned nuclear power stations for £60 billion instead of paying profits to foreign energy companies? I'm sure, Ian, it can't be that simple. Can it?
Well...
Can it? I mean, you do wonder, because there's all this talk about new nuclear power stations, which I think are going to be absolutely needed. But, of course, they're all funded by different countries. How does that give us energy security?
And I think a lot of us have... I think we've sleepwalked into this.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about privatising certain companies, but who did we privatise them to? And I don't know whether we're very happy to find that an awful lot of other countries, some of whom we do not trust, actually own great swathes of our private companies that, you know, that manage things like energy and rail networks and stuff. Brian from Hull's got a good idea. I wouldn't know how to do it myself. He says, I've moved my heating thermostat from the hallway to my living room, and I heat only that room. My direct debit was £113 a month, but thanks to the government now, my direct debit is £66 a month. Now, that's interesting. Why do they put thermostats in hallways?
Well, it's because it's the general temperature of the house.
Yeah, but who heats a hallway? Who can afford to heat a hallway anymore?
I mean, the general idea is that you don't get a thermostat in a room because then the rest of the house doesn't benefit if that room comes to temp, as they would say in Dinner Ladies.
But surely that's the way it has to be now.
Well, yeah, which is why there's an advantage with a lot of these thermostats now, if you've got something like Hive or Nest or all these various other things, where mine moves about, so you can actually just plonk it in any room you want.
I've got one. It's in a box in the kitchen drawer. I've
This
never
is
actually...
the trouble.
I know.
This is the problem
Well,
I have with Anne
complicated.
Diamond.
Yeah, you've got to come around and translate it for me, or find out how to do it. But
Yeah.
I've got one in a box, so I just get it out of the box and you can put it anywhere.
Well, you've got to make
And you
sure
have
the
to link
system...
an app to it or something, do you?
Well,
for your phone?
It depends what else you've had installed. We'll sort it out. We'll sort it out. But that's a very good idea, Brian, once that temperature room comes up. Robert, now we've had this before, right? People emailing in about Octopus Energy. Robert, thank you. He says they guarantee that the electricity they sell is 100% from renewable sources. If that's correct, why are the prices they charge the same as other companies? Don't know.
Didn't we find out once, weeks and weeks ago, and I can't remember what the answer was?
I think we came to the conclusion that, of course, the electricity you use in your house has been generated the same as everybody else's, because that's... So what they must do is offset and say, sort of offset your thing to say, well, actually, your energy has been produced by... But it all comes down the same wires, doesn't it? But why, as a result, if they're saying it's all 100% and therefore could be cheaper, why is it not? Don't know.
But if you do, get in touch with us, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Enlighten us all, please.
Yes. We've much more to come for you, including the very latest GB News People's Poll. We'll bring you all the details in a couple of minutes.
Hello, good morning. A bright start out there, and compared with yesterday, a brighter day to come. But it stays breezy. There'll be further showers, especially in the north and the west. Low pressure remains in control, that low pressure sitting towards Iceland, and we keep the tightly packed isobars, but the very strongest winds and the most persistent wet weather, well, that's moved out of the way into the near continent. So left behind, we've got this brisk westerly airflow, a rash of showers already into Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and they'll develop a bit more widely into the Midlands, Eastern England, Eastern Scotland by the afternoon. So I don't think anyone will be immune from seeing a shower. They'll be fairly fleeting, I think, and short-lived in the east, whilst frequent and heavy towards the northwest, accompanied by that strong wind. That's going to make it feel cool, whilst I think in the south and the east, where we get a bit of shelter from the breeze, where we get a bit of sunshine, 18 or 19 Celsius, will feel pleasant enough. The showers in the south and the east tend to fade away as the sun goes down, but I think on Saturday night we'll keep showers going for Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England as well. In the south, drier, but actually later in the night, thicker cloud and some spells of rain push back into the southwest. That'll keep things mild, 13 Celsius here, 8 to 11 Celsius elsewhere. Some sunshine first thing through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, Northern England, North Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia. A fine day through the central swathe, but in the south, well, thicker cloud turns up and some persistent and at times heavy rain, especially towards the southwest and then other parts of the south coast. South Wales could see some rain for a time as well. and it's going to feel cool under that rain with a brisk breeze. But through the central swathe, high teens, pleasant enough. Further showers to come in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Monday sees further showers again in the north, followed by more persistent rain later, much drier further south.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News. It's 8:28 already. Don't know where this morning's going.
No, it's flown by. Welcome back, by the way.
Welcome back. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
You're watching and listening to us. If you're on the radio, you're listening to us. And remember, you can take us with you wherever you go. Because it's easy if you've got one of those DAB things. But because I still haven't, I put it on my phone online and listen.
Yeah, a lot of people do that.
Dead simple.
Yeah, but we need to sort out I need to sort out your car, the radio, your central heating.
Yeah.
I'm building up. Considering you've got 4 sons, I don't know why I'm being...
I know, but children are like that, aren't they? You say, can you help me just sort my computer out? Oh, Mum. That's all I get. It's not very helpful.
Not very helpful. I'm going to have strict words with what I know.
Could you please?
Yes, I will. Now, if there was any suspicion that Liz Truss has had a bad week, it's confirmed by our GB News People's Poll, which shows a 30% lead for the Labour Party over the Conservatives. Labour's on 50%, Tories on 20%, and it's grown from only a 12 percentage point lead just over a week ago.
And I guess you can read into this that it's also good news for Sir Keir Starmer on perceptions of economic management. Only 10% say a Conservative government led by Liz Truss would be best for the economy, contrasted with 39% for Labour and Keir Starmer. But don't you think that's a bit like what you were saying earlier? It's not it's not oppositions that win polls or the biggest poll of all, a general election. It's governments that lose it.
Yeah. That is the way. That's how it works. Not to say that opposition parties don't come up with some good ideas at times, but governments lose elections.
And sometimes they get a landslide.
What is interesting, though, with this, and so much of it is about optics. It's about what the perception is about what is going on. And that's all very negative at the moment about the government. There's no getting away from it. If you're the deepest blue Tory supporter, then you've still got to say it's been a very bad week.
Yes, and there are politicians who are true blue Tory supporters and who are particularly supportive of Liz Truss, but even they are very critical of the way she has managed this announcement, this mini-budget, if you like, because it doesn't look caring, does it?
But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad.
No.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to work out. And I think I think that's an issue we have, well, not just in this country, but across the world, is that we want everything's instant, isn't it? You know, we get an instant poll, an instant sense, and it's all everything's in chaos, everything's falling apart. Well, not necessarily so.
Well, Pete Price, who'll be reviewing the newspapers for us shortly, he said about an hour ago, didn't he? He said it's getting like football. You know, the minute something goes wrong, get rid of the manager. And that's, frankly, what has just happened, isn't it? They've got rid of Boris Johnson. We've now got Liz Truss as Prime Minister. And already people are sort of calling for her to be booted out. Which soon, isn't it?
Well, it is a bit soon. People still, you know, things have to be given the chance to bed in. It's not very comfortable, things bedding in, when you think, well, we're all suffering and what's going to happen here and what's going to happen there. It was a bit interesting. So talking to Liam Halligan, who was with us yesterday, we were talking about, because there's been all this furore and all this anger about the reduction of the additional tax rate, as they call it, of 45p being scrapped.
That would hardly raise, what he said, it would be a drop in the ocean compared to the sort of money figures we're talking about.
I think he was, did he say 2 billion?
Something like that.
It was something like that, which is what that actually cost. Now, of course, the argument is that would benefit the economy because more money would go into the economy and trickle down economics. Whether you believe that or not is up to you. But, however, it's not actually costing a lot of money. But that's got all the headlines.
But that's what they
optics.
should have said, isn't it? They're not managing the optics.
No.
Liz Truss has actually said herself that she doesn't mind being unpopular. But why go for it? Why appear to court unpopularity? Why not make the statement easier to understand and actually just easier to accept, because there are pluses to it that need explaining?
Yeah, it's that explanation and the transparency. And I also think it looks very bad, this OBR, Office of Budget Responsibility, and the forecasts which they make, which are very important. And there was like a baseline forecast they'd done ahead of the budget, which wouldn't be exactly right, but it would give an indication that the government wouldn't release it. Now, that just doesn't smell right.
It's very strange, since they met with the OBR yesterday. And still, you know, we would have expected some sort of announcement, or she might have said that, you know, we've met with the OBR, we have their full, you know, report or whatever, which we will be bringing to you. Nothing said, which makes everybody very suspicious.
Yeah, it's very odd, isn't it? Though they have confirmed they're going to bring out that full OBR report a month early, but that's still not going to be until end of next month.
Again,
so we're going to have to wait.
Not terribly impressive.
But will that calm the markets? You see, the whole point is the optics, whereas you can say, well, the optics doesn't matter. It's not the reality. The problem is the optics drive the financial markets a lot of the time, and then that does have a very real impact. So it's like fantasy versus reality, and the two intertwine.
Why are the financial markets so hysterical? Why do they go into panic just like that?
I don't know.
Weird, isn't it?
They're a bit like social media, aren't they?
Yes, it is sort of like that. Instant panic is what we saw, and yet the pound does appear to have recovered.
Yeah, it's bounced back.
Let us know what you think.
Oh, we could
Views at GBNews.uk.
We could be financial experts, Anne.
I don't think so, really. I'm about as good as finance as I am at DAB Plus and managing my central heating.
Yeah, dear me. Anyway, let us know what you think. Now, over the last week, NHS Blood and Transplant have been encouraging people to register as donors as part of Organ Donation Week.
Thousands of people in the UK are in desperate need of a life-saving donation, and just one person signing up could make a huge impact. Our North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper has been speaking to two women whose lives were brought together by organ donation.
A week-long push to convince people to become organ donors is now coming to a close. An opportunity to save a life once yours comes to an end, donating your organs to give someone else a second chance.
Mandy, you needed a kidney and a pancreas to be donated, and you were able to receive them from Lozzie's son, Jordan, when he passed away. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. It's a roller coaster of emotions, because you know that somebody's had to pass away so that you get that gift of life. You know, your organs, when you pass away, may still be very, very healthy to carry on giving life.
After the organs of Lozzie's son, Jordan, saved Mandy's life, the two became friends, even going on holiday together. Although she lost a child, Lozzie feels that Jordan now lives on through her choice to donate her son's organs.
I don't think I'll ever come to terms with the loss of Jordan, but it has
helped me a lot, knowing that he's alive in other people. It's kind of like, it is still like he's still here. You know, it's like when Mandy come, when I see Mandy is there with us.
There are still so many people in urgent need of an organ donation. In fact, in the UK, there are almost 10,000 people waiting. Organ Donation Week is now coming to a close, but NHS Blood and Transplant will continue to urge people to put their name down on the organ donor list.
The key is if you've had that conversation and the time comes when a loved one dies and you need to consider organ donation, if you know that that's what they wanted to do, you're much more likely to be able to honour that gift and with confidence talk about organ donation, that that's what they wanted to do.
This week has been all about opening up a dialogue between families, because even if just one more person registers as an organ donor, many more lives could be saved.
In organ donation, you can actually save up to 8 people's lives, and with tissue donation, you can save many more too, and certainly improve the quality of their life. So we find that it's not generally just one life that's saved, it's more. It can be 3, it can be 4, it can be up to 8.
Some stigma still exists around organ donation, but by sharing stories like the one of Mandy and Lozzie, NHS Blood and Transplant hope to encourage people to take a simple step that could change the lives of many. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
I tell you what, it's so easy to sign up as well. Just Google NHS Blood and Transplant. And the other thing, which they do talk about on the website and things, is talking to your family. Because whatever your decision, they can overrule it. Because my husband is not very keen on the idea. Doesn't like the thought of it. Doesn't like the thought of it. But I'm signed up, so I have said...
That's your decision.
If I pop off, let them harvest what they want.
Yeah, me too.
Take the lot. Take the lot.
And it's so important.
Oh, yeah. So you've got to tell your family.
Life-saving impact on other people.
Yeah.
So important. But it's up to you. It's your own choice.
Yeah, but I'm well, fine. What's the point if you're dead? If you're dead, you don't need it. Yeah, that's the bottom line.
I know, but some people just cannot take talk of it, even
Yeah.
let alone the thought of it. But you know, it's your choice, and you make it. But it is important to make it known to other people in your family. Yeah, because they may take the wrong choice for you.
Yeah. No, there you go. So it's good. I'm all for talking about things like that, you know.
Yeah, but
I don't
some people
believe in
aren't.
taboos.
No, but that's your personality. Some people just can't even go there, can they?
No, I get that.
I think you have to talk about.
I get that. Brian, talking of what you need to do, Anne.
Oh.
All right, he says, it's simple to move the modern thermostat, Anne. Simply unscrew it from the wall and place it in the living room where you can see it. But it might be hardwired in,
I think
Brian.
it is.
Might be hardwired in. Yeah.
I don't understand how that works at all. I like Trevor's idea. He said, why don't we charge energy companies rent for housing their meters? That would offset the standing charge.
Oh.
In other words...
Yes.
Charge them a standing charge.
Well, you get that if you've got... well, not that you get many telegraph poles, but if you have a telegraph pole in your garden, they pay you rent for having it, yeah. Yeah.
Many people would want a
we
pole in their garden.
We had, well, growing up, we had a telegraph pole in the garden. And, yeah, we got rent for it. But, I mean, it's pence a year.
Yes, it wouldn't be much, would it?
No, but nevertheless, every little helps.
Our air conditioner's just come on. It's freezing again. John says, my daughter and my son-in-law have 2 log burners, and they made this decision to buy them several years ago. It was the best thing they ever did, especially this winter with the fuel crisis.
Richard from Doncaster says, force the rich, optional for others, to pay into government bonds that are used to build nuclear power stations and renewable sources, not a tax, because they'll get a return, say, after 10 years.
Sort of sounds like a good idea, but aren't they doing that already? Isn't that what the gilt market is?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, if people are investing in the market, so some of that will go into that. I know what you mean, though. I don't know about forcing, because then if they run out of money for whatever reason, if disaster strikes, then... I know what you mean.
It is frightening, isn't it, as well? I think Carol says, we're terrified. My husband is a pensioner and he's at home all day. I go to work in an office 3 or 4 days a week and then I'm at home for the rest of the week. In March 2021, we switched our energy provider to OVO. We haven't received an accurate bill since.
You should be on a smart meter. Mind you, I'm on a smart meter, and yet someone came around from British Gas the other week because I kept getting emails saying you need to send in a meter reading, which I just ignored because I thought that must be spam because I've got a smart meter, and then someone turned up to do it. So why are they reading my meter? I've got a smart meter.
I had an email saying we came to call the other day to read your meter, but we couldn't find it. Please do it yourself and send it in. And I thought, it's outside my front door. It couldn't be more visible.
You can't.
It's a bit like delivery companies, I think, isn't it? When they said we tried to deliver, did they heck?
Oh, yeah, you do get that. That drives you mad, doesn't it?
Yes.
Get a note through the door.
The driver just got a bit fed up and didn't want to make the delivery.
Yeah, I didn't want to face you.
Well, maybe it's that too. Yeah.
It'll be that.
Face the very fierce dog I have. We're going to be talking about dogs later. She's tiny and fluffy, but she's got a loud bark. We're going to be talking about dogs a bit later on. We've got a vet coming into the studio who's gone viral with his social media thing about the breeds of dog he would most recommend to people. The ones he said he would have himself, because he's gone on what his experience is of their sort of, their
health and everything.
Yeah.
A lot of it's down to health.
A lot of it's health, yes. But the number one dog he recommends is a mongrel.
Because it's a big genetic mix.
Yes, that's right. Whereas some that have been very distinctly bred for a look or something often have problems.
Inbred.
And he says you should brush your dog's teeth. He recommends it for all dogs, that you should brush.
What does he?
I have never brushed a dog's teeth.
Haven't you?
I've bought the toothbrush and I just can't face doing it. Have you brushed your dog's teeth? I don't think Ellie would like it very much at all.
Well, you never know. She might love it.
Yeah.
There's like a rubber toothbrush that you put on your finger.
Yeah, and you just,
Yeah.
Weird. Let me know if you brush your dog's teeth. Or if you've got any problems, actually, that you want to ask our vet about when he's in.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, a bit later on. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
Bring it in. You can practice on me.
I will if you want.
Anyway,
You're not small, white and fluffy, are you?
Oh, I could be. There's more to come for you this morning, including the papers, so don't go anywhere. We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio.
and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Oh, it's very, very nearly 8:45. And Prince William is pushing for more restrictions around potentially harmful content online in order to stop more children having easy access to it.
Yes, the recent Molly Russell inquest concluded that the 14-year-old schoolgirl died by self-harm whilst suffering negative effects of online content. And Molly's father, Ian, is also campaigning for better protections against potentially dangerous social media algorithms.
Well, let's talk to the chairman of Safe2Net, a software development firm which tries to stop children having access to dangerous content. That's Richard Percy. Richard, good morning to you. We're always
morning.
told by these big tech companies that this is very, very difficult to do. Is it really?
Well, it is difficult to do, but it isn't impossible to do. You know, I run a company which is a great British startup, tiny in comparison to a Meta or a Pinterest or a Twitter or any of these guys. And if we're capable of writing technology that can detect and filter harm in real time, then you've got to ask yourself, why can't they? They can afford to employ the greatest graduating talent out of Stanford, pay them an absolute fortune. I can't afford to do that, but I can still employ great people who can write great technology that can keep our children safe online.
Question is next, why don't they? If it's possible, why aren't they doing it?
Well, there we go. Was it bad news sells newspapers and all that? They make a ton of money by allowing people to say what they like, do what they like, talk to whoever they want, whenever they want, and so on. They make an absolute fortune out of it. And so fundamentally, this comes down to commercial greed.
What sounds astounding to a lot of people, which you don't necessarily realise, is that it's certainly in the case with Molly Russell, she's clearly looked at some images and some stories for various reasons, but it's the algorithms then that are then throwing more of this material at her. Surely, I mean, that could be stopped tomorrow, couldn't it?
You are absolutely right. Look, what was it? 53 years ago, we were able to put a man on the moon. Do we honestly think it is not possible to write competing algorithms to stop that sort of perpetuating spreading of hate and harmful content? We can absolutely do it. You know, on the outbreak of the pandemic, look at how the world got together and within a space of a year was able to create a vaccine to tackle COVID. If we all got together, the safety technology companies worked with government, worked with handset manufacturers and so on, we could have this problem licked pretty quickly.
Well, the coroner yesterday was very outspoken about it, and so has Prince William been today. It's the lead story in the Daily Telegraph, for instance. Do you welcome that, the fact that they are trying their best to make this high profile and to actually demand some action?
Oh, very, very, very much so. See, one of the challenges of my job is I get to see about all of this harmful content. I get to see how children are harmed for the rest of their lives. I mean, the reality is that the whole world, we're living in a social experiment, and that experiment being the life of living our lives online. And children spend the majority of their time online. You know, when I was a boy, I used to snuggle up with mum and dad on the sofa on a Saturday night and watch TV. That doesn't happen anymore, as you know. So Prince William saying what he's saying, I think is great news. And I wish more would follow. He's absolutely right to say what he's saying. These devices, these smartphones, gaming platforms, IoT devices and so on, they should be safe out of the box. It's an absolute nonsense that a parent can give their child a smartphone and the moment they do it, they don't know who their child is talking to, what they're seeing, what they're saying, and so on. So he's right. It should be safety by standard. These devices should be safe out of the box.
I think you make a very, very good point. Look, it's really good to talk to you, Richard, this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Given us a lot to think about, and hopefully, you never know, the big tech might jump on that bandwagon and actually do something.
Well, the coroner was very outspoken yesterday, wasn't he? And Prince William now keeping it in the news. Something's got to be done. Right, shall we have a look through the newspapers? We've got Emma Webb and Pete Price back with us. Lovely to see you again.
What a nice man he
Wasn't
was.
he? Yeah.
Didn't he speak a lot of sense?
And he says, if I can do it,
yeah,
the big company.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But all about money.
I tell you what, I wouldn't want to be a parent nowadays.
No, no, mate.
Terrifying.
No, mate.
It is, isn't it? How do you keep... Your children want a smartphone.
Yep.
You give them one anyway because you want to keep in touch with them as well, and anyway they demand it. How do you then safeguard them if the big techie companies won't?
Don't know.
OK, Pete, tell us about pensioners wanting their banks to reintroduce face-to-face services.
Great story. Old customers want return to bank tellers. Millions of pensioners want their banks to reintroduce face-to-face services. 3/4 of the customers, 65-year-olds, around 7.86 million wanted change. The campaigns are demanding the changes and they want post office kept open, banks kept open. And they said that half of the people quizzed online online. People do use it, but they're frightened. They haven't got the knowledge or confidence. I've said it before on here, and I'll say it again. These banks and post offices are lifelines to people. It keeps people alive, and also people are getting screwed on the phones with these people setting up bogus accounts and can easily be taken advantage of. And it's a life. I mean, now you can have a check on a phone. So you put your check on a phone. I mean, I want to go and I want to talk to somebody. I tried to get my check onto the phone. It didn't work. I went in, I spoke to somebody. What are you smiling for?
Well, no, you see, I'm all for the technology. I love it. I did a check the other day, actually, on the phone. But it's no good if some people can't use it.
Yeah.
So if some people can't use it, they have to be offered an alternative, don't they?
I think it's not just only pensioners, because I actually feel exactly the same way.
That's right. I was going to say that.
I don't like using internet banking, and I think, aside from the point that it's absolutely right that some people don't feel confident to use it, they might not want to, you shouldn't have to. We should still have analogue options available for people who don't have smartphones or don't want to have them or can't have them for whatever reason, can't afford them perhaps.
You want a human being to go and speak to.
We shouldn't force people to be reliant on tech if they don't want to.
And they want to go into the banks and pay their bills. They want to pay their bills in the post office. It's a lifeline. It's a purpose to get up in the morning.
I'll look after your paycheck.
No, and you
Pete, don't you worry, I'll look after it for you.
You're married?
I'll still look after your paycheck for you.
You're just after the diamond watch again.
He's got a diamond watch. Yeah, I definitely would have that. Can we talk about medieval woman, Emma, in the Telegraph?
This is a wonderful story. This beautiful photograph of a reconstruction of a medieval woman. And so this lady was, she was 700 years ago. She's been digitally reconstructed. 700 years ago, she was buried on a bed of seashells in Whithorn Priory in Dumfries and Galloway. And she was excavated in the 1950s. And the University of Bradford is using facial reconstruction technology to put together the faces of some of the people they found. And with this woman particularly, one of the academics working on this project said that it was the most symmetrical skull that they'd ever seen, suggesting that she was extremely beautiful, and that to have a skull that symmetrical, she would have had to have had a lovely childhood, so she would have been well-nourished, she wouldn't have had emotional stress, she would have slept well.
She looks very similar to you.
Oh, thank you.
Can I hold it up for you?
You haven't seen the photograph.
Well, I'm very flattered.
She's absolutely beautiful.
That's why she picked the story.
Like a medieval noblewoman.
Could be a medieval
You've had a
noble.
close-up yet?
Where?
Let's try and get a close-up.
No,
There you go.
look at that.
She really is beautiful, yes.
Wow. Well, it's amazing how they do it. And you wonder how accurate.
You wonder, you absolutely.
It could actually be.
It is. It's extraordinary that they're able to do
the
this.
pensioner looks like me as well.
He does. He does, Pete. He does.
Queuing up at the post office.
Talking of being baffled by technology and all that, what about the shoppers baffled by changes to store layout? Can I just say, Pete, this is in the Times, my local Sainsbury's has just reorganised its shelving.
Yeah.
I can't find a thing.
No.
I cannot find a thing.
But they do it on purpose. I don't care what they say. They do it on purpose anyway, to make you go round to buy more. I've been in many times to buy a pint of milk and come out with a basket full. Yeah. So the supermarket shoppers have been left baffled and annoyed by the changes in the store layout, which have got to be made now. The changes are hastily being reorganising in there because they've got to place food that's deemed high in fat, salt or sugar. And there's points given for if they're unhealthy. Retailers have already spent hundreds of millions of pounds changing the store around, and now you've got to go and look for unhealthy food, which is tucked away. It's a bit like, I think, the magazines on the top rack. You can't get it when it's up there. I think it's terrible. I went looking for some garlic beads the other day and came out...
Garlic beads?
Garlic beads, yes. They're beautiful in oil. Great to cook with. Because, you know, I was a chef. That's another story. But I went looking for these garlic beads. I was an hour in the supermarket.
It's crazy.
Sometimes for things, can't you?
It's crazy. Like on the pet aisle now, they've got the cat litter is round the other side.
By the way,
I'm going to come and see the manager. I'm going to have
The
words.
words are very confusing.
it says confusion over obesity. There is a lady, bless her, and I won't say which store it is, big store, and she uses the one of the electric, and then walks off. Right.
Yeah, oh well, so it's like an episode of Benidorm, isn't it? There you go. Look, we need to leave it there. Pete, Em, it's been good to see you both this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Good to see you. Don't go anywhere. All the top stories heading away, and lots of dog news, actually, after the weather.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio.
and online. We're proud to be the People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Hello, good morning. A bright start out there, and compared with yesterday, a brighter day to come, but it stays breezy. There'll be further showers, especially in the north and the west. Low pressure remains in control, that low pressure sitting towards Iceland, and we keep the tightly packed isobars, but the very strongest winds and the most persistent wet weather, well, that's moved out of the way into the near continent. So left behind, we've got this brisk westerly airflow, a rash of showers already into Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and they'll develop a bit more widely into the Midlands, Eastern England, Eastern Scotland by the afternoon. So I don't think anyone will be immune from seeing a shower. They'll be fairly fleeting, I think, and short-lived in the east, whilst frequent and heavy towards the northwest, accompanied by that strong wind. That's going to make it feel cool, whilst I think in the south and the east, where we get a bit of shelter from the breeze, where we get a bit of sunshine, 18 or 19 Celsius, will feel pleasant enough. The showers in the south and the east tend to fade away as the sun goes down, but I think on Saturday night we'll keep showers going for Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England as well. In the south, drier, but actually later in the night, thicker cloud and some spells of rain push back into the southwest. That'll keep things mild, 13 Celsius here, 8 to 11 Celsius elsewhere. Some sunshine first thing through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia. A fine day through this central swathe, but in the south, well, thicker cloud turns up and some persistent and at times heavy rain, especially towards the southwest and then other parts of the south coast. South Wales could see some rain for a time as well. And it's going to feel cool under that rain with a brisk breeze. But through the central swathe, high teens, pleasant enough. Further showers to come in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Monday sees further showers again in the north, followed by more persistent rain later. Much drier further south.
Well, Well, households are going to see their energy bills rise from today as the new energy price cap comes into effect.
Good morning. It's 9 o'clock on Saturday, the 1st of October. Happy new month. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We're live, of course, across the whole of the UK on your TV, your radio and online. So wherever you are, you can take us with you today. These are your top stories.
Well, energy bills will rise for millions of households, but the increase will be cushioned by a government cap on the cost per unit. We'll find out how this is going to affect your monthly energy costs.
Also today, more strikes across the country. Train drivers going on industrial action for 2 days as part of that long-running dispute over pay.
And Prince William says online safety must be a priority after the death of 14-year-old Molly Russell. Molly took her own life after viewing social media posts, which the NSPCC has already said no child should ever see.
Well, look, we'd love to hear from you on anything we're talking about today. Energy, strikes, banks, building up societies, post offices. You're getting in touch with all of it, plus dogs. We're going to go through dogs as well a little bit later on this hour. So keep all your thoughts coming through. GB Views at gbnews.uk. But we better crack on, I suppose, with the main news this morning, because it's grim news, actually, today. 1st of October, but that means your energy bills are going up, or unless you're on a fixed-term deal. The cost of living crisis is continuing to affect us all, of course, and Ofgem has announced an energy price cap cover for domestic homes in England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland.
And this comes as the average household energy bill is set to rise from £1,971 to £2,500, nearly double what it was last winter.
Well, to cope with the squeeze, the government has set up a range of support for businesses, which, of course, have really struggled, along with the rest of us, because they weren't having any sort of price cap up until now. So businesses, charities, public sector organisations, it all falls under what they call the new Energy Bill Relief Scheme.
And meanwhile, the independent energy research firm Cornwall Insight says the scheme will apparently cost the government £25 billion. Our reporter Thea Chikomba has more.
Libraries are often a place to come and delve into a book, but here there's more. Suffolk libraries are opening their doors to meet the needs of communities across the county as the cost of living increases.
Our colleagues who work at all of our sites spend every day chatting to people in the local community and understanding what their needs are. And a lot of those conversations obviously are people talking about their, definite concerns about the cost of living and the rising pressures on their own personal budgets.
And that's why they're expanding their services here in Ipswich, where they're seeing more people come for financial and emotional support.
Especially of late, people coming in and using the food banks and talking to us, and it is heartbreaking to see that people are suffering, but at the same time it's very rewarding that they know that they can come to the library as a safe, warm environment and they will be offered some support and kindness. I think at the moment, with prices and everything going up, the one thing we can give for free is kindness and support.
From today, the wholesale energy price will be discounted for 6 months. Prices will be fixed at £211 per megawatt per hour for electricity and £75 per megawatt per hour for gas, which the government say is less than half of the wholesale prices anticipated this year. Meanwhile, in London, this church near Covent Garden turned on their heating for the first time this week as temperatures are starting to drop. Their main source of heating is oil, which isn't capped, but will the discount for their electricity and gas help their bills to go down?
We hope that some of that offset from electricity and gas will set off some of the cost of the oil. So it is going to make a difference to us. What size that's going to be, we don't know yet, but it will make some difference. It all depends on what all costs look like and how much we have to use to keep the building warm.
The scheme has been welcomed by many businesses and organisations who feared sharp rises this winter. But industry experts still question what will happen after New Year when the government reviews who will be eligible for support in the long term. Theo Chikomba, GB News.
So how's it going to affect you?
And how can you bring your prices down with the little control you have?
Yeah, let's talk to consumer champion Will Hodson. No pressure, Will.
No. We've been talking woolly hats, leg warmers and things like that. But, I mean, are there some realistic practical things we can do to help ourselves?
Yep, there's more. I mean, you can look at, I think, probably 2 categories in terms of reducing your energy usage. Because don't forget, it's the energy prices that are fixed. You can still reduce your bill, but only by reducing the amount that you use. So it's one thing to talk about the big investments. Not everyone can do that. So I would start with things which give you a really quick return and cost you almost nothing. Stuff like, draft excluding strips in your windows and doors. Things like using, less water in a kettle, no more than you absolutely need to use. But the truth is, if you have the money, there has never been a better time to insulate your house. Problem is, people don't know where to start, and it's actually quite simple and straightforward. Just Google EPC, means Energy Performance Certificate. You can get yours for your property, and it will set out the most compelling steps you can take to reduce the energy that you use in your house. The most obvious one will be loft insulation, followed by maybe cavity wall insulation. And I can't overstate the point enough that...
Are both of those expensive options?
So if you're getting loft insulation, that's going to cost you about £500, and it's going to save you about 450 quid a year.
Oh, right.
Because of the gas prices, right? So this is the point. Previously, you thought, well, I can't do that. Now, it's going to pay for itself in a little over a year. Cavity wall insulation, about £600. It's going to save you about 250 quid a year. So you're looking at 2.5 years for that to pay back.
Is that the foam stuff? We would literally pump it in?
That's it. So you could, Stephen, you could get up into your loft this afternoon and you could probably do the loft insulation yourself. You roll over the kind of...
You just roll it out, don't you?
That's it. With the cavity wall, don't do that. What you need is a professional to come in, really simple. You kind of drill a little hole in the wall and you fill the hollow between the 2 walls that we have in cavity wall built homes. You fill that with foam, and that will make a massive difference to your home's insulation, saving money and also making it much more comfortable.
You see, and it's a great idea. The problem is a lot of people are saying, well, I haven't got that money to spare now. And this is the problem. We've almost left it a bit late, haven't we?
Yeah, that's it. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is, if you don't have that money to spare, it could be the case that the government has. So there was a scheme announced on Thursday, £1.5 billion, targeting, it's available for 130,000 homes. So they're going to get to you through social housing, also through local councils. So it's worth seeing if there's support there. You've also got ECO, the energy company obligation. Contact your supplier. They might have free insulation to offer. And again, let's underline this. There's never been a better time to do it. And if you get to 2.5 years down the line, thinking, I should have done it 2.5 years ago, don't make that mistake. Now's the time to do it.
So some energy providers have schemes whereby they can help you with insulation?
And all of them. All the major providers have, right? Now,
why aren't we being told? I mean, you're telling us now, but why aren't we aware?
We don't like conspiracy theories, and this isn't a conspiracy theory. The truth is they do a fairly decent job of making people aware, because it's not everyone. You have to be in receipt of certain benefits, so if you really are feeling the pinch, there's a chance you can take advantage of this. I have to say, you are putting energy companies whose business is built on selling units of energy in charge of giving you the insulation that helps you use fewer units of energy. Maybe we could find a better way to make people aware of this stuff. But get in touch with...
Turkey's voting for Christmas, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. So if you want any of that, you've got to do the legwork. You've got to actually do a bit of legwork to find out what you're entitled to and where you can get it.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Or, it's the case that, social housing will probably get in touch direct. I think that your energy companies might well have been in touch, but it's worth checking. If you're in receipt of certain benefits, pick up the phone, send them an email. You could have a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
See, the problem is with everything else and all these little tips and hints and all the rest of it, they save pennies. And I know the pennies add up, but we're at a point now where people are saying, well, I need to save pounds.
Yeah.
And so that it's the big expense that will do that for you, rather
What
than
are
the little
common,
bits and bobs.
I mean, what are the common ways that we waste energy that we could actually all address?
Well, some of it seems like, what our parents would be talking and grandparents would be referring to as just simple, avoidance of waste. So if you're using the washing machine, make sure you got it full. You're setting off a dishwasher, if you have a dishwasher, try and make sure it's full, not just a couple of, teaspoons. Same goes for kettle. That's just about using things effectively and efficiently. If you're getting into the territory of Edwina Curry's favourite tip of sticking kind of silver tinfoil behind radiators, I think that, to be honest, is an edge case. I don't think it's fair to say that's a solution. The solution for reducing people's bills has had to be this price, protection that the government announced last week, and also insulation as well. But as we said, not everyone's got the money to do it.
I don't know if it falls under your remit, but what about supermarkets and things? I mean, in terms of how we're shopping, because obviously that's a huge household extra, because it's not just about saving money on our energy, is it? It's about saving money across everything. Are we getting decent offers in the supermarkets? The prices coming down? Are the value ranges all there like they used to be? I mean, it's all that sort of thing we can do.
Yeah, I think the supermarkets realise that they have something of a social responsibility now. And you've got campaigners around food and food poverty who are keeping a hawkish eye on the price of those value ranges. So I wouldn't like to go into too much detail, but I do think supermarkets have that responsibility. And from what I can tell, those ranges are still fairly affordably priced.
Richard says, I reduced my gas usage by separating the water flow to upstairs and introducing another thermostat for upstairs only. Ask your plumber if this can be done simply by adding another motorised valve.
Oh.
It's a thought.
Stuff like that sounds pretty good, but you've got to have a bit of nous to sort of even know where to start on something like that, even to think of it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the problem.
I'm afraid the other one is, reducing the flow temperature of your boiler. So, that is a phrase probably we'd never heard of in our lives until we were all looking for ways to reduce our bills.
But there's
by
often an eco
here and there.
button on these things, isn't there?
Which you should go for, absolutely. And also, there's always a way to Google the details of your boiler, say what you're looking to do. How many times we found actually that Google, and YouTube makes things easy to do, where previously you wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah, there's usually some sort of instructional video on YouTube telling you how to do it.
Does it get hard work for you, Will, in the sense that you've been coming on here for quite some time now, and we keep saying to you, well, how do we save money? What do we do? And yet, amidst all of this, the price, no one's got any more money, and the prices are still going up. So it's like with people who feel they've shredded all the fat already, and they're still saying, well, you need to do something else.
Yeah. Well, things have changed. Things have changed a little bit. I remember it wasn't so long ago. I was coming on here every week, and you're saying, Will, we're being told that prices are going to go up next year to £4,000 next week. Will, prices are going up to £5,000. Will, they're going up to £6,000. And the government weren't saying anything. So it's not just about energy prices, it's also about the sense of sheer panic that was set out through the nation. Now, thank goodness, because of the energy price guarantee, the average use in a British home has been capped at £2,500. That's a step in the right direction. But what what I want to emphasise is, if the real cost of energy is £5,000 for average use, and what we're having to pay is £2,500, someone has to pay the difference, and that's government. So it's very natural that we all thought, breathe a sigh of relief, we're off the hook. As bill payers, we might be off the hook. As taxpayers, we are on the hook for every unit of energy being used up and down the country because of the government policy.
Nearly 3.5 hours ago, one of our very own viewers was saying exactly that to us. Because he's, few, thank goodness, we're being helped right now, but he's worried that his kids are going to have to face the tax burden in the future.
This is exactly
that will
right.
pay for this.
And it didn't have to be that way, Anne. Bear in mind, there were various voices in the political debate. Some were saying, look, I think it's fair that help comes on this energy crisis from those who have profited from it handsomely, who are the energy producers, not the energy suppliers, energy producers. And the government has decided, no, we're not going to do that. We won't extend the windfall tax. Instead, what we're going to do is pile this on to future generations.
But is that the wrong decision? Because we were talking last weekend to Malcolm Grimston, who's an energy expert, and he was saying, well, look, the windfall taxes do seem the profits do seem very big, but that money is, there's shareholders and all the rest of it, but a lot of that money is being used for, R&D, research and development, looking at green, cheaper, more efficient ways of getting energy. And so he said, if you start taxing all of that, what you actually do is create a problem further down the line.
Well, I think that when the windfall tax was first introduced by Rishi Sunak, after a lot of pressure, he was very careful to configure certain tax loopholes where you wouldn't be taxed if you were going to put certain money into certain things that we, as an economy, saw a long-term interest from. So there's a way around that. I can't get away from the fact that companies like Centrica saw their profits increase more than fivefold in 2022 compared to 2021. To me, that's not because they were amazingly innovative. It's not because they took amazing risks. These are things which profits totally deserved. It's because of the war in the Ukraine. That's what they're profiting from. It only makes sense, I think, they make a contribution towards helping, those of us, the entire British society who are suffering so badly with bills right now.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's very interesting. Just stay there, Will. I want to show you. Here's number 10. This is the Danish Prime Minister meeting Liz Truss. Let's just have a listen in, see if there are any questions thrown at them.
Ja, men det faktisk kommer ud kl. 10 igen, så måske bedre vente så. Okay, godt. Ja, godt. Hej.
Are you bringing back us? Who is showing disdain?
But what's quite interesting because didn't we have a deal with was it the Danes we had a deal with over some of some energy supply that there's then since been withdrawn because obviously the Danish are feeling the pinch themselves?
I don't know. I mean, in terms of Scandinavian energy deals,
because there was some sort of water and what's that like water turbine, fjord, all sort of generation that we were taking. There was a big hullabaloo about 12 months ago. We were meant to be taking some, we've got a deal to take some of that energy. That all seems to have fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, I mean, well, that goes to energy security, right? Even Denmark feeling the same way. The truth is that the Scandinavian giant of energy is Norway, because they're the biggest gas producer in the world. Nobody talks about this very much. They're the biggest. You think about Russia right now, in terms of who's supplying us, it's Norway. Norway making money hand over fist because of a gas market that's been jacked up by the conflict in the Ukraine. But every country is having to think about its energy security, which is why in Britain, all eyes have to be on the nuclear power stations in Hinkley coming online, as we hope they're going to by 2026, and also investing in renewable energy, which is energy being generated here, domestic stuff that we control, and which goes to British customers first and foremost, which is not, by the way, what would be the case with any gas extracted from fracking ventures. That goes back onto the international market.
And if you look ahead, we might be being helped a bit at the moment, and not, as you say, there's a tax burden for the future on that. But energy and energy security is going to be absolutely huge for the next general election, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're going to need some really good forward thinking, aren't we?
Forward thinking is exactly the right phrase. What do we talk about at a household level? I'm looking at this cavity wall insulation. It costs 500 quid. It's only going to save me £220 per year. It's going to take 2.5 years to pay for itself. 2.5 years from now, you're going to wish you'd done it. And it's the same at a national level. When we're talking about nuclear power, it's not going to come online quick enough. There's no point making these investments. Hinkley will be the first nuclear power station come online for Britain for decades. It's not going to happen quick enough. There is no
We should have built it years ago, shouldn't we?
Which is very easy to say now.
What about solar panels? Can I just ask about solar panels? Because you were talking about cavity wall insulation and insulating your roof. Are solar panels still an investment worth making for the average household?
Yeah, they absolutely are. Because solar panel, you effectively become a very, very small-scale energy producer. Good to get into that market right now.
Aren't they expensive to fit, though, still?
They are expensive, but this is one of the investments for which there is help through various government schemes. Well, what I'm calling for is, especially now, as we discussed, the government energy price guarantee, by paying half of every bill in the country, more or less, has put us all on the hook for every unit of energy that's being used up and down the country. I think it makes sense that the government helps us all to use less, not just targeted through social housing, but a national insulation scheme. So I think there should be more incentives for solar panels, for insulation, for every household, not just the few being targeted now.
We're being yelled at because we're really running over, but you are fascinating to talk to, which is why we like having you on. So I just want to ask you this to finish off, because we mentioned this before. Robert got in touch saying Octopus Energy guarantee that their electricity is 100% from renewable sources. So why do they charge the same as other companies?
Totally fair question. And the truth is, this is one of those slightly baffling things about our energy market. It's not the fault of the renewable producers or suppliers. I would compare it a bit to be the principles of an auction. If you're bidding for something on eBay, and let's say you're willing to bid £10, someone else, the next highest bidder, is only going to bid 6, you're only charged £6 and a penny, because that was all it took to win the auction. Now, there's something in our energy wholesale market, it's called marginal pricing. What that means is, if to supply the country, to get enough power on the grid to meet our demands, you need to have so much gas, and the gas price is, let's say X pounds. It doesn't matter if renewables are cheaper. If you're using renewables to come in, the structure of it is there's a marginal price, which means renewables, which cost less than gas, still get the same price as gas. So for a supplier like Octopus, they're facing more or less the same costs as anyone else to get power to their customers from the national grid.
Right.
Go.
It needs to be looked at as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I should think. Will, it's always fascinating to talk to you because you make it make sense. Thank you very much indeed.
Right, should we move on to something else that's happening to us all at the moment, and that's the rail strikes. Only 1 in 9 trains are running today because strikes are decimating the rail network in the biggest union action so far this year.
Yeah, members of the RMT, ASLEF and the TSSA are on picket lines this morning in what is a closely coordinated blow to the rail industry.
And this action is going to disrupt the plans of those travelling to take part, for instance, in tomorrow's London Marathon.
Let's talk to our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, who's in Derby for us this morning. Are the picketers out in force this morning there, Will?
Good morning. Yes, it seems that there's a few picket lines in Derby today because while there's the RMT, ASLEF, TSSA and Unite unions striking on the rails, there's also the Communication Workers Union that are just round the corner, and they've actually just joined together here in the background. So there's a lot of people on this picket line here. What there isn't a lot of, though, of course, is trains going in and out of Derby Station. Only 1 train every hour for the intercity routes, so that's for Nottingham, Derby, Leicester, going towards London. So it is going to be a lot harder if you wanted to get down to London for that Conservative Party conference, or you wanted to go to the London Marathon, both of which start tomorrow. The strike is, of course, on today, but there's going to be after effects and delays that will continue into early tomorrow morning. It is the biggest action of its sort. 54,000 people from those unions, so drivers, cleaners, people that maintain all of the things that go on inside of a train station like here in Derby, and as a result there's only 11% of trains running. Now some of the big people that are involved in this, and we've become very used to seeing them on our TV screens and on our Twitter timelines, are the General Secretaries, the most famous of which is the RMT's General Secretary, who you'll be seeing interviews of today, Mick Lynch. He said that the summer of solidarity, looking back on the strikes that we've already seen so far, will continue into autumn and winter if employees and the government continue to refuse workers' reasonable demands. So there is still no negotiations that have been met. There's still no deal that has been met, so you can expect that this is going to continue for quite some time. Network Rail is warning you not to travel unless absolutely necessary and to check for updates before and during your travel. It's worth reminding you as well that this isn't the only action that you might see today in big cities. There's a campaign called Enough is Enough. That's also organised by some of the big unions. You'd see it if you're in Nottingham today, for example. You'll certainly see it if you're in London. And that's the big campaign regarding cost of living, because there are so many strikes happening right now. We're not quite at a general strike, but it is starting to come together, and there is certainly this national embodiment of why people are campaigning for action, because this cost of living crisis is becoming so difficult for so many people.
Will, thank you. Let's head to Leeds and our Yorkshire and Humber reporter, Anna Riley. What's happening there, Anna?
Good morning. Yes, I'm at the picket line here at Leeds train station, where workers, RMT union and ASLEF union have gathered in solidarity in striking, and I'm here with John Stewart. John, if you just want to come in, John is the branch secretary of Leeds RMT. Just tell me why you're here, John, today, and what you're hoping to get out of this strike.
Well, we're here today to get the message over that, as it says on the big banner behind me, that enough is enough. We've all had enough, the general public's had enough, and certainly railway workers have had enough. And we want to get the intransient government that's pulling the strings of the employers around the table to talk sensibly about it.
And John, you have worked in the railways for 46 years. What's it been like, and what is this cost of living crisis doing for workers at the moment?
Well, it's gone downhill ever since privatisation, to be quite honest with you. It just become a money machine at that point. It was all about shareholders, it wasn't about staff, it wasn't about the general public. The railways is supposed to be a public-owned industry, in my opinion, that's there for the public, and it's gone downhill. It's never been like that since privatisation. Couple that today with the cost of living problems that we're having, the increase in fares that's likely to come in the early new year, then it's going to make a system that's unusable for the general public, to be quite honest with you.
And these strikes have been going on since summer. It has inconvenienced a lot of travellers. What would you say to people that aren't able to use the trains during these strikes?
We don't want to inconvenience anybody, but the system is such that we've tried to get negotiations going around the table, and we've reached a point-blank situation where the government, and it was grant chaps at that time, were instructing the companies what they had to do. They can't get them around the table. And what else have they left us to do? We have to show our upset and disappointment by taking industrial action. The general public are supporting us very well. We get lots and lots of praise from them, saying keep it up. They know that this isn't just about the railways, this is about every worker in this country. Because if they get away and break the railway union, the RMT, which is what they're trying to do, it's not really about modernisation. Modernisation means nothing to them. It's about saving money and breaking one of the stronger unions that we've got in this country. And if they break us, they'll come for everybody else after that. And all the workers out there need to understand that it's us today and them tomorrow. So we need to keep this going. It's not about pay rises as such, it's about keeping people in jobs. It's about keeping the railways safe for the general public to travel on. And yes, we would like a pay rise. It's been 3 years since we've had one, so I don't think it's out of a question to ask at this stage.
Thank you, John. Thank you for speaking to us this morning. So, yeah, that's John there saying why people are striking here today in Leeds, and the RMT and other unions here are going to be joined by the Enough is Enough campaign protesters. There's expected to be thousands coming here to Leeds today to protest against the cost of living, to call out to the government to give people a pay rise, and to also cut those energy bills for people. So we'll be covering that throughout the morning as well.
Great stuff. Anna, thank you.
And joining us now is the spokesperson at Railway Delivery Group, Dan Paynes. Very good morning to you, Dan. I suppose I'm tempted to say, what's going on and how can we get past this stalemate of strikes?
Well, first of all, can I just apologise to any of your viewers and our customers that have been disrupted today and have had to change their plans today and over the next couple of days as we try and run as many services as we can. But that is very limited. And the reason it's limited is because those 3 or 4 trade unions in the rail industry have decided to take action over the same sort of period of time. So we're working hard to deliver that, but nobody wants to be in a position from a train operating perspective where we can only run 11% of our services.
No, what is happening in terms? Put it into context for us as to how these negotiations all work, because of course the unions are blaming the government. The government says it's down to Network Rail, and obviously the train operating companies work with Network Rail. So, I mean, how does it actually all work?
Well, there are 2 separate sets of negotiations going on. Network Rail, which runs the infrastructure, the track, if you like, and the train operators represented by senior members in the industry, which are looking at the train operator side of things. And those are the people that physically operate the trains around the network. So there are 2 negotiations sort of going on, if you like, and they're in slightly different places. But fundamentally, it's about the same thing. We want to give our staff a pay rise, a fair pay rise. We know that it's challenging out there. Your previous feature, featured strongly on the cost of living crisis, and there are very few people that work for us as train operating companies who are unaffected by that. But at the same time, the railway is in a challenging position as well. Not only are we coming out of a pandemic where that has changed the habits, the working habits of our customers almost unchangeably over the last couple of years. We've got to get ourselves back to growth. So that leaves a big black hole in the finances. So really, the conversations that are going on, both with Network Rail and the unions and the train operators and the unions, is about how do we find a way to pay for the increases in pay we want to give to our colleagues.
OK, Dad, we've got to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you.
Thank you. Yes, we've got lots more to come, so do stay with us, including the latest results from GB News' People's Poll.
Hello, good morning. A bright start out there, and compared with yesterday, a brighter day to come, but it stays breezy. There'll be further showers, especially in the north and the west. Low pressure remains in control, that low pressure sitting towards Iceland, and we keep the tightly packed isobars, but the very strongest winds and the most persistent wet weather, well, that's moved out of the way into the near continent. So left behind, we've got this brisk westerly airflow, a rash of showers already into Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and they'll develop a bit more widely into the Midlands, Eastern England, Eastern Scotland by the afternoon. So I don't think anyone will be immune from seeing a shower. They'll be fairly fleeting, I think, and short-lived in the east, whilst frequent and heavy towards the northwest, accompanied by that strong wind. That's going to make it feel cool, whilst I think in the south and the east, where we get a bit of shelter from the breeze, where we get a bit of sunshine, 18 or 19 Celsius will feel pleasant enough. The showers in the south and the east tend to fade away as the sun goes down, but I think on Saturday night we'll keep showers going for Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England as well. In the south, drier, but actually later in the night, thicker cloud and some spells of rain push back into the southwest. That'll keep things mild, 13 Celsius here, 8 to 11 Celsius elsewhere. Some sunshine first thing through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, Northern England, North Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia. A fine day through this central swathe, but in the south, well, thicker cloud turns up and some persistent and at times heavy rain, especially towards the southwest and then other parts of the south coast. South Wales could see some rain for a time as well. And it's going to feel cool under that rain with a brisk breeze. But through the central swathe, high teens, pleasant enough. Further showers to come in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Monday sees further showers again in the north, followed by more persistent rain later. Much drier further south.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
(9:35). Good morning to you, watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. Do you know what? I'm really happy to be here this morning.
Good.
Because I had 4
What did
days
you
off.
suddenly think
I
of
had
that?
4 days off, and I slept for the best
Yeah.
part of 4 days. Really got myself back on track, so my bloods were a bit all over the place. Got myself sorted out. And it's just lovely. I just like being here with you, having a nice time.
Yeah, having a natter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, talking about, trying to save a bit of money on heating
yeah.
and things, John says, in the 50s and 60s, most people never had central heating, only coal fires. The frost in the morning was on the inside of the windows.
God,
Do you remember that?
I remember that.
We didn't have double glazing, we never moaned, and we never lost a day at school. That's very true. Different days, weren't they? Because my mum would never let me have a day off school for anything.
No.
I could plead that, I was half dead, and she'd still say, got to go to school. So there you are.
I
Things were different.
got a certificate for never missing a day of school.
Oh, well done, you.
And a £5 book voucher. Woohoo! Anyway, look, it's been a bad week for Liz Truss, confirmed by the GB News poll this morning. Shows 30% point lead for Labour over the Conservatives. Labour on 50, Tories on 20.
Yes, it could be argued, actually, as well, for good news for Sir Keir Starmer, because perceptions of economic management show him in the lead again. Only 10% says a Conservative government led by Liz Truss would be best for the economy. 39% seem to have faith in Labour and Keir Starmer.
Well, let's speak to Professor Matt Goodwin, who's behind all this polling. Matt, good morning to you. I mean, look, this ties in with other polls, doesn't it, to within 1 or 2 percentage points, which, I mean, if nothing else, validates the results. It's pretty grim news for the Tories.
Yeah, we've got a pretty consistent picture this week. After the mini-budget last Friday, we've got leads for the Labour Party of between 20 and 30 percentage points. This is pretty remarkable. Those viewers with long memories would remember the 1990s, the mid to late 90s with Tony Blair and New Labour. That's the last time we saw Labour leads this big. So this is pretty historic, actually, what we're seeing. And I think, obviously, it underlines the need for the number 10 team and Prime Minister Truss to really get their hands around what is happening in the polls.
As well, because people were asked about the words that spring to mind when asked about Liz Truss's economic policies. And they're not very good words, are they?
No, they're not. The most popular words were rich, rubbish, disaster, and disastrous. Remember, this is a representative poll of the whole country. So we're not just asking Labour voters. We're not just asking Conservative voters. We're asking everybody what they think about many of these policies. And if you drill into the data, I mean, here's the thing. Some of Liz Truss's policies are actually quite popular. People like the idea of reversing some of the tax increases on national insurance, lowering income tax as well. But they don't like, and they really don't like, removing the cap on bankers' bonuses, lowering tax on big corporations. That is not the kind of economic strategy that many voters want to see, especially those red wall voters who voted Conservative for the first time in 2019. So there's a lot for number 10 really to get into here.
People, you say they don't like the strategy. Is it more that they just don't think it's fair? Because fairness, when it comes to these issues, is actually a very difficult issue.
I think you've just hit the nail on the head. Fairness is the word that I would choose when looking at these numbers. We had another survey this week that found that only 19% of the country think that the mini-budget, the economic policies that we've seen over the last week are fair. Now, to give Liz Truss some credit here, the energy plan that she's rolled out is widely supported. About 80% of voters think it's a good idea, but it's those other policies that are problematic.
Yeah, and one of the other things to come out of the poll is that people prefer Keir Starmer to manage the British economy in the years ahead than the present government. But he's got absolutely no record, has he, to count on?
No, I think this is a case of oppositions not winning elections, but governments losing elections. And as you say, Keir Starmer is now seen as the preferred manager of the economy. It's important to stress, though, that most voters, a plurality of voters, say they don't know who to back on the economy. So yes, Starmer has a lead, but there is a great deal of ambivalence out there. And I'm sure your viewers would probably relate to this, a sense that they don't really know who should be dealing with these big issues. They're not perhaps particularly impressed by the Conservatives. They're not particularly impressed by Labour and Keir Starmer. And that's what's channeling everybody into saying, you know what? I don't really know who I back on this big question of the cost of living crisis.
Yeah, well, can't say I blame them, to be honest. It's very difficult to get your head around. Matt, really good to see you, as always. We'll catch up again soon. Thank you. Anyway, don't go anywhere, because coming up, we've got Aidan, we've got Stephanie, and we've got the top 5 dog breeds.
Does your dog count? Does it make the list? We'll find out in a moment.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV.
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
There's a fly.
Oh, what are you doing?
There's a really nasty, really irritating little fly in the studio.
Well, look, we've got a nice last segment for you, because, of course, we've got our very own Aidan McGee, we've got our very own Stephanie Tetchy, and we've got a veterinary surgeon and TikTok star, Ben Simpson-Vernon, who's going to be talking to us about dog breeds as well. Good morning to all three of you.
Good morning to you all.
But weirdly, I want to kick off with soup, because Aidan's been cooking, especially for us.
Indeed.
Talk us through it,
Aidan
Aidan.
is a chef, and he's very, very proud of his soup making.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have an extensive repertoire of dishes just yet. I'm just getting started. But, you know, I've mentioned my chestnut soup so many times on this show. And week after week, you've been saying to me, when are we going to try, Aidan? When are we going to try it? So I thought, enough of the bluff. Let's try this stuff.
Is
so
delicious.
Can we get... Oh, you're trying already?
Oh, yeah.
Let's go for it again, shall we?
So this is chestnut soup.
This is chestnut soup. Let me just have a quick taste, so I'll just familiarise myself with the ingredients.
Oh, chestnuts, hopefully.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
I think I've got the temperature just right. So, yeah, chestnuts are the main ingredient, clearly. High in protein. If you're interested in low-carb or keto-focused diets, excellent for that because they're high in protein as well. All the good stuff. Onions, celery, carrots, a dash of garlic, flat leaf parsley on top, a little bit of olive oil, some butter, a knob of butter, a little dash of salt and pepper. Mix it all together, blend it together in my new blender. And you saw it last night. I played a video to you last night. You saw the preparation that went into it.
But we got the video to show.
There's a stock cube as well. So I don't know if we got it.
Aidan did a really professional video. In fact, I think you're auditioning as a TV chef for all the lovely, on a beautiful crystal white kitchen. Very impressive. And then everything chopped up beautifully and looking really, really colourful.
That is so full of flavour.
Do you really think so?
I really like that.
We don't have the video?
No.
No, we don't have the.
Don't worry.
It's because I forgot.
Steph, what do you think?
I forgot to send
I
it on.
love it. I'm loving
sure?
all the flavours. I really need a winter warmer this morning, so it's so good.
That's what I was thinking. The nights are drawing in a little bit, aren't they? I noticed last. It was 6:30 last night, and I just thought, you know, I'm going to do something special for the team. We are a family.
What do you reckon? Do you like it, Ben?
Yeah, it's delicious. Very rich, I think.
It is rich.
You wouldn't want
isn't
like a massive bowl of it, but it's,
No,
it's
no,
really
you won't want a
tasty.
gallon. Just a dish is fine.
Aidan, how long did it take you to make it?
It's about 2 hours 20 minutes. That's the quickest I've done it in. But
2 hours 20 minutes.
Yeah, 2 hours 20 minutes. But that's from literally starting everything from fresh. You know, I'm branching out as well. I'm trying pear and celeriac in a couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Very
I
good.
tried it once before. I think I could improve on it, and maybe I'll bring that one in as well. You never know.
Well, yes, please do.
No,
Keep it coming in.
Since we're facing winter, and we could argue very well to the powers that be that this is money-saving tips, isn't it? You know, making your own soup, keep yourself warm in the winter.
Oh, you know what I did as well?
A soup a week.
What? Go on, just quickly.
I used some celery with no date on it.
Yeah.
So that eased up on the food waste. I could have bought another one from Sainsbury's last night. I didn't. I used the one in the fridge.
It's a very good way of using vegetables that are sort of not looking as pretty as they should.
Exactly. They might. Yeah, the celery wasn't looking peak, but you know what? They've got.
How expensive are chestnuts to buy?
Chestnuts, if you buy them in a pouch, they're actually not too bad. People have visions of like loading them onto grills and having to cook them as you would around Christmas time. But no, these ones are from a flat pack. They pour nicely into the soup. I think you can get for less than £2 per pouch, so it's not too bad. Don't forget, this is only a small batch here. I've got an extended batch as well, so quite a lot.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Now, look, let's talk dogs. Because Ben Simpson-Verdon is here. Now, you've gone viral on TikTok, Ben, over not only saying which dogs you wouldn't sort of have as a vet, but also now the latest one is which dogs you would have.
Yeah.
First, why did you decide to do it? Because, I mean, it's a tough call for a vet to say what you prefer, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think really the main kind of reason that I started doing it was because as vets we always see new puppies when they come in and their owners already chosen them and we don't really get involved in that decision-making process of what breed they're going to get. So I wanted to put more information out there, particularly about the health of these breeds, because we do see a lot of the most popular breeds do have a lot of health problems.
Which is why your number one dog is recommended is a mongrel.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you don't always know what you're getting with them.
No, I think that's the downside. You haven't got the predictability in terms of their temperament and how much activity they're going to need and, perhaps what size they're going to be when they're fully grown. But they're, a lot of pedigree dog breeds are very inbred and have, that can lead to a lot of health problems. Yeah, and the mutts have got the sort of genetic diversity on their side, and that's a good thing for their health.
Yeah.
Number 2 was, I've got it written down somewhere. Go on, a Labrador.
Yeah, Labrador, I was a little bit conflicted because they are a breed that can be prone to some health problems. So I think if you're getting one, you need to do your research into what problems they're prone to, and it's good to find a breeder that tests for some of those problems. But I think they're just, you can't really go wrong with a Labrador. I think they're
very
just
loving,
like brilliant family dogs.
See, I was quite intrigued that you were saying in the video that you need to do lots of hip checks and shoulder checks, and I mean that's a lot of. See, I always go for rescues.
Yeah.
So with these sort of things, you're not going to get.
No,
all that
absolutely.
information.
I think a rescue's different. I think if you're, if you're able to rescue a dog, obviously, it's a different kind of situation to if you're buying a brand new puppy. Really, I think if you're able to rescue a dog, then do. But if you're getting a new puppy,
research
then
the sort of dog. Can't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of rescues, they'll make you very, obviously the dog will have been checked over by vets, and they want to make sure that you're aware of the potential problems they might have. So they'll help in that process.
Would you say it's not, because I'm really bad, I'm one of those people who just want a nice little cute dog that I can put in a bag.
Yeah.
Sorry, or a pug or whatever.
Yeah.
So would you say it's less about the aesthetics and more really looking about the ailments, the potential ailments that a dog could have? And because what about, I love pugs, but people always tell me don't get them because of their breathing issues.
Yeah.
Would you say dogs like that don't
It's not strictly true, is it, the breathing issue thing?
Not all of them. So, there are definitely individuals of those breeds that are much, breathe quite well. And again, there are breeders doing a lot in terms of trying to improve the breed and reduce the chance that they're going to have those issues. Yeah, exactly. That to breed them for a slightly longer snout, and I mean that's easier if you can crossbreed them as well with another breed. But yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people do choose a dog breed on the basis of how they look, and that's not a great way to go. So really, do your research.
What was this? Now, because we'd never heard of it. I can't think what it was.
A Hungarian wire-haired Vizsla.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a niche choice. No, they're not that common, but you know,
So you
I've
just
seen...
put that there to show off.
No, I think yeah, there are lots of dog breeds that aren't that popular that we don't, you know, people
Well, there you
might
are
be
on your
familiar
video,
of.
and that is a Hungarian
That is a white-haired Vizsla, yeah. That's what they look
Use
like.
the size.
Not quite. They are quite big dogs, but not quite that big. I mean, they're yeah. I've met quite a few of them. They tend to have quite a nice temperament. They are very, you know, they're working dogs. They're gun dogs. They need a lot of exercise. So I think, you know, you need to have the time to walk them. But they're lovely dogs.
And then you've got Border Terrier in at number 4.
Yeah, I think Border Terrier, I mean, if I was going to get a small dog, probably a Border Terrier would be sort of top of my list. Yeah,
that's one
because they're cute dogs, but they're not exaggerated in any way. You know, they haven't got the flat face, they haven't got a long back, which comes with some issues as well.
They're intelligent, aren't they?
So, yeah, they're very intelligent dogs, but a lot of terriers can be very sort of independent and very headstrong, and I think Border Terriers are quite cuddly as terriers go. And again, health-wise, they're quite robust.
And number 5 is a very interesting one because you say a Greyhound is a very loving dog.
Yeah.
Like a former runner, though.
Yeah, if it's been a former runner and oh, look at that. if it's, yes, it's now retired from racing, they still make very good pets.
They do, yeah. I mean, I think they're generally they're on the whole, obviously, you know, not all of they're not all the same, but they're generally gentle sort of dogs. They've got a calm sort of temperament, and there are just so many of them needing homes. So the Greyhound Trust, they estimate around 8,000 a year that retired from the racing industry and need new homes. So you know, there are a lot of Greyhounds needing homes.
What happens to retiring Greyhounds if they don't get found?
Some of them are unfortunately put to sleep. That's the reality.
Mind you, take on a racing dog, you're going to have to do a lot of exercise with it, aren't you?
You do, but they're very used to sort of short, sharp bursts of sort of sprinting of exercise. Actually, a lot of Greyhounds will adapt quite well to, you know, having sort of 2 not particularly long walks. They're quite happy to plod along as long as they've got some chance to sort of sprint around. They're quite well adapted to, you know, they're good for lifestyles where maybe you can't walk a dog for 2 hours every day.
See, this is why you need good advice from a vet.
You do need good advice, but I tell you what, you've got to. With all of this, you need a commitment. I get really annoyed when people take on a pet without having the commitment.
Yes.
You've really got to commit to an animal, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a problem we've definitely been seeing during the pandemic. A lot of people quite impulsively got dogs, and now they're sort of maybe not working from home so much. And you know, maybe, you know, obviously with the sort of cost of living crisis, people's financial situation might be a little bit tighter. People perhaps haven't got so much time to...
Do you want to see what some of our viewers' dogs look like?
Yeah, I'd love to.
We've had some lovely pictures in. Thank you so much. This is Alan's husky, Molly. He says she loves to... We need to get rid of the strap, don't we? There we go. She loves to just lounge around the living room while we're watching the telly.
Here's a border collie called Heidi, belonging to Joe.
In her element.
She loves
regal.
Bounding around the park and playing in the newly fallen autumn
That is a beautiful, beautiful photograph. And finally, these are Nicola's beautiful sheepadoodles. Sheepadoodles. They are a proper pair. They never go anywhere without each other.
That's lovely.
That's a bit like the dog we saw this morning very early on. It was a golden something doodle.
Golden doodle?
Golden something or other. And if you're listening on the radio, don't forget to get online or get the GB News app or go on YouTube and have a look at some of those dogs. Absolutely beautiful.
Pam says, I rescued 2 King Charleses 6 years ago. They'd been used for breeding and they were in a very poor state. Now we're 3 old ladies together. Beautiful temperaments. They're Daphne and Ruby, and I love them dearly.
Hey, now, before we fall off the air, Stephanie, you better give us a bit of showbiz news.
Oh, it's time to face the music for Ed Sheeran.
Is he back in court?
Yes, he's going to be back in court. He's been accused of ripping off Marvin Gaye's Let Get It On in his song Thinking of You. So he's being faced with potentially a bill of £90 million. And this is only 6 months after he managed to dismiss claims of copywriting Shape of You. So he's not going to be happy with that.
He's not, is he?
And the judge in the US has actually said that he has to stand on trial.
Right,
for
OK.
it.
And what's happening with the Beckhams?
Victoria Beckham showcased in Paris Fashion Week yesterday. Amazing. And it was
the family put on a united
It was
front.
a united front with Brooklyn Beckham and his wife, Nicola, because there's obviously been a lot of hearsay in the newspapers saying that there's been a rift. So it's quite good to see them reunited yesterday. But people are saying, is it just a bit of a show and tell and not really authentic? But who knows what goes on.
Every little
behind
helps,
closed
doesn't
doors.
it?
Yeah.
You see, the nice thing about all this, Ben, is you're turning into a showbiz vet now.
Yeah.
Are you prepared for that?
Not really. No. I didn't really. I didn't really expect the videos to get as big as they did.
Well, people love their dogs.
Yeah,
do.
yeah, absolutely.
Animals.
Yeah,
They do.
Yeah,
well, look, Ben, thank you very much indeed.
No, yeah,
for
really,
coming in
really
and
enjoyed
sharing
doing
all
it.
that with us. It's really good to talk to you. It's
And
nice just
Aidan,
to
thank
talk
you for the
animals.
soup.
No worries.
Thank
We've
you.
got
Absolutely
Man United,
excellent.
Man City tomorrow. Super Sunday.
Super Sunday.
Super Sunday.
Derby day as
Yeah.
well. Derby day.
Oh, well, you can talk about that a lot tomorrow.
I can indeed.
And bring more soup in. Thank you very much indeed. That was-
Empty beakers, that's pleased.
That's
Yeah.
always a
Yeah,
good sign.
very nice.
Stephanie, thank you.
No worries.
And we shall catch up with a bit more showbiz from you tomorrow. Look forward to that. And thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your company. Don't go anywhere, though, because Esther and Phil are here in just a couple of minutes.
Hello, good morning. A bright start out there, and compared with yesterday, a brighter day to come. But it stays breezy. There'll be further showers, especially in the north and the west. Low pressure remains in control. That low pressure sitting towards Iceland. And we keep the tightly packed isobars, but the very strongest winds and the most persistent wet weather, well, that's moved out of the way into the near continent. So left behind, we've got this brisk westerly airflow, a rash of showers already into Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and they'll develop a bit more widely into the Midlands, Eastern England, Eastern Scotland by the afternoon. So I don't think anyone will be immune from seeing a shower. They'll be fairly fleeting, I think, and short-lived in the east, whilst frequent and heavy